Chapter 358. For the average apprentice knight. If they successfully survived the dangerous Destiny realm, they would have to spend at least a week to rest and recuperate. It was rare to see an apprentice knight like Han Dong, who rushed to the library to learn after a good night's sleep, or even before eating. However, this was inevitable. Since Han Dong chose to embark on this unusual auxiliary path, he had to spend more time than ordinary people, not to mention that Han Dong had some small tricks outside the city. On the private carriage to the library. After I reach the basic level of magic in the library, I'll find time to leave the city. Anyway, the materials I sent last time should be enough for the doctor to use for more than 20 days, and the basic facilities have been built. When I reach the basic level of magic again, I can ask the Crowman Elder for some special magic knowledge. At the same time, I'll find a way to revive the head nurse and find an assistant for Dr. Swollen. Speaking of which, the harvest this time is really rich. Han Dong took out the core searchlight from a lantern man, Kanejima Soichiro, from his pocket. This item was the source of Han Dong's long-term plan to create a special weapon. Destiny material: a lighthouse source, lamp tube, quality, epic category, light magic material effect, provides a unique strong light attribute. When made into a weapon, provides a large increase in the light attribute and provides a unique strong light skill. When made into an accessory, increases the light attribute magic damage of the wearer and gives the ability illuminate, dispels fog, darkness and other environmental factors that obstruct vision that are not higher than the material's grade. For methods that are higher than the material's grade, the effect will be weakened gradually. When used with other materials of the same quality to forge, there may be an unexpected fusion effect. The light attribute of the material itself is easier to catalyze the relevant reaction during the forging process. Under special circumstances, the light attribute can be changed, such as dark light, according to the requirements of the forger. Epic material. This was the highest quality material Han Dong had seen so far. However, it was impossible to forge a suitable equipment with only one material. Han Dong planned to rent the node for 2 years and use all his points to exchange for an epic material of the same quality. At that time, he would borrow Han Dong's power. He could ask for some precious materials from outside the city from the Crowmen, or obtain some secret materials through Mr. Black and White. In Han Dong's opinion, if he mixed the Destiny materials with the Chaos materials outside the city, he might be able to create equipment that was more suitable for him. Once the materials were gathered, he would ask Wen Li, the blacksmith, to find her or a more advanced blacksmith to forge it. Han Dong knew what kind of equipment he wanted. Combining mysticism and the library, Han Dong had a special development goal. Profession name. A library compared to the other 4 professions, the name of this profession was rather unique. Most of the abilities it bestowed were inclined towards magic. However, it was impossible to generalize these knights as mages. Because the word magician was too narrow, only the word library could fully cover it. The common holy light priests, elementalists, necromancers, and alchemists all came from the library. At the same time, there were also classes that were rarely heard of, such as demon warlocks, binders, battle mages, and so on. The library's internal branches were the most extensive among the 5 major professions. This was also the main reason why many newcomers chose the library. Such a huge variable allowed everyone to find their own suitable path in the learning process. Because of its popularity, it was tied with O Crusader. In addition to the uniqueness of the library, it also had a school-level public facility, such as a library. Library's area was the largest among the 5 major faculties. Also because of the preciousness of the internal collection of books, the library's security measures were also top-notch. Even the students of the main faculty had to verify the Knight Waste Tag to pass through the various areas of the school, and they also had to show the approval document when going to certain areas. As for the students of the outer academy, Without special permission, they could not enter the library's territory. Wow, this is library's territory? It's really heavily guarded. Han Dong's rented carriage was warned when it was 1 kilometer away from the territory, and it was forbidden to continue. When he stepped off the carriage, he could see the landmark of the library, the giant obelisk. A total of 9 giant obelisks surrounded the academy. The obelisks formed a sealed barrier between each other, and only the night waste tag that recognized the students of the main faculty allowed passage. The first attempt would be bounced back by the barrier. The second attempt would activate the obelisk and trigger a destructive magic spell. At the same time, every teacher in the library carried an accessory called the Eye of the Obelisk, which could be used to observe the situation outside the obelisk at any time. Nicholas, over here. After a while, the handsome young man wearing a bronze monocle, Demps, passed through the barrier and waved at Han Dong. He still had a temporary pass in his hand that he had applied for Han Dong, but it was still troublesome for him to enter and leave the library for a long time. The reason why Han Dong had come today was because he wanted to confirm the long-term entry and exit in advance. Come with me, you have 3 points allocated to the library. I believe the teachers won't make things difficult for you. When he heard that Han Dong had obtained 3 fate points through a single fate event, Demps was not particularly surprised. In his opinion, Han Dong had such ability. Holding the temporary pass, he stepped into the barrier. A magic academy that could only be seen in fantasy movies appeared in front of Han Dong. In the open garden area, various vegetative statues were chatting with each other like normal people. Various colorful butterflies that would form a thin layer of mist in the air were fluttering about. At the center of the garden, there were many water drinkers gathered at the side of the fountain. They could only use cups of limited size to line up for the water of life. Many students who majored in water, plant, and holy light were freely training in this area. Compared to the mystery section, this place was much more lively. This is the Life Park, located to the east of the library. The main library, also known as the Magic Headquarters, has been set up in the center. There are 9 special areas of different attributes around it, and the current Life Park is only one of them. Where are we going now? We're going directly to the main library. I've already mentioned your matter to Vice Director Hera. She has agreed to meet you. Don't worry, I have a good relationship with Vice Director Hera. You can relax when we talk. As long as there aren't too many conflicts of interest, it won't be a problem to give you a student pass. While talking about Lady Hera, Demps hooked his finger slightly to let Han Dong understand the meaning behind it. Chapter 359. The General Library, also known as the Magic Headquarters. Such a core building was equivalent to the Dark Moon Tower in the Mystery Department. It was one of the most important buildings in the Night Academy. It had a comprehensive office, a collection of books and secret texts, as well as high-level meetings. It was different from the other departments. In the library, in addition to teaching and managing the students, there was also a director and a deputy director of the same level responsible for managing the National Royal Night Academy's library. At present, Demps wanted to bring Han Dong to see the powerful deputy director. The exterior was designed to be similar to Big Ben, but it was different from the Bell Tower that controlled the Destiny space. The whole building was surrounded by a strong magical aura. He showed the pass authorized by Ms. Hera. The two officially entered the general library. First, they had to pass through a 10-meter-long passage engraved with various magical carvings. These secret carvings would further detect whether the two were carrying items or had dangerous characteristics. During this process, the crow mark on the back of Han Dong's right hand faintly appeared. With the perfect camouflage of the faceless skull, they successfully escaped the inspection of these carvings. Demps on the side reminded him, the general library was redesigned by the former director. It's the first time using a multi-dimensional staircase structure. It's easy for you to get lost in it since it's your first time here. Follow me closely. Otherwise, it will be difficult for me to find you again. When the door of the inspection passage opened, the wonderful structure of the library's hall made Han Dong stop immediately. The staircase that obviously did not conform to the rules of the three-dimensional space was designed in this open hall. Some library staff wearing double-breasted windbreakers were walking on these stairs in different directions. As long as one understood the rules, they could go to any area of the general library. If one looked at this staircase with a normal three-dimensional concept, they would inevitably be lost in it. Because of the existence of the multi-dimensional staircase, the space utilization of the general library was maximized and complicated. Even if an outsider broke in, if they could not decipher the structure of the staircase, they would be lost and unable to reach any important areas, giving the security personnel time to act. Penrose Stairs? Han Dong had come into contact with this kind of multi-dimensional model when he was alive. After all, sometimes micro-scale calculations were needed. Han Dong's mathematical foundation was not bad. In basic mathematics, there was the concept of multi-dimensional space. However, this was only to help mathematicians understand the concept of multi-dimensional space, and it was difficult to apply it to the field of physics. After all, humans were only individuals in a three-dimensional space, and it was difficult for them to pry into the structure of a higher dimension. If we follow this structure with the turning point of the stairs as the center, theoretically, we can make 4 perpendicular lines. Judging from the way these people are walking, that is indeed the case. A staircase design that projected the 4-dimensional space into the 3-dimensional space. Is the former curator really that amazing? He saw that Han Dong was deep in thought. Demps asked curiously, Pa, Nicholas, could it be that you have some understanding of multidimensional space? I only know some one-sided concept. It can't be considered an opinion. It's already very powerful. Spatial magic is much more difficult than conventional magic. 99% of the apprentice knights would be eliminated just from the entry level of space, and the subsequent learning would be even more difficult. It had been a long time since the Holy City had produced a space mage at the level of a commander. I'm currently taking some time to understand and learn about spatial studies. There seemed to be some hidden meaning in Dempsey's words. Han Dong asked curiously, That's right? By the way, aren't there some creatures in the Destiny realm who are proficient in spatial magic? They are just born with an intersection with multidimensional space, and they are not proficient in it. The spatial ability they carry is given, not learned by themselves. Most of them can't understand the principle. A true space mage is basically unkillable, and even a higher existence. Let's go, we can't keep Ms. Hera waiting for too long. The moment they stepped on the stairs, Han Dong felt that the originally normal library hall had become folded. The seemingly simple stairs could easily span a large distance, and they could reach any area in the library building at will. They kept turning back and forth and walking vertically. A slanted staircase on the wall corresponded to the 3rd reading room. Once they entered a room in the main library building, the interior immediately returned to the normal 3-dimensional space structure. In the reading room, with a total height of about 10 meters, more than 10 pairs of white gloves were automatically organizing the books here and taking care of the cleaning work. Some senior students were using their precious time to read and study here. Under Dempsey's lead, they found Ms. Hera in the deepest part of the reading room. She was a blonde beauty wearing gold-rimmed glasses. She had the aura of a movie star, and from her appearance, she looked about 35 years old. But her figure and the texture of her skin were definitely comparable to some models in their early 20s. You're Mr. Black and White's student. Follow me. Hera touched a special switch, and a secret staircase opened, leading them to the deputy director's private office. Have a seat. Ms. Hera deliberately let Demps sit beside her so that she could cross her long legs on Demp. As for Han Dong, he sat on the guest sofa. I heard that you want to minor in library? Have you invested the relevant points? Yes. I've invested 3 points. Hera was slightly surprised. She thought that Han Dong would ask about the feasibility before investing, but she didn't expect that he had already invested 3 important points. Oh? 3 points. Not bad. Do you plan to mainly study in the mystery branch, or do you plan to spend most of your time in our library? This question needed to be answered carefully. I'll take care of both, but because the library started too late, I'll do my best to study in the library in the early stages. Hera's expression was rather cold in response to Han Dong's answer. If not for Demps asking me to take you in, no teacher in the library would touch a hot potato like you. You should know that although minor majors aren't completely prohibited, they aren't encouraged at all. Because minor majors are a waste of destiny points and energy, there are many students who can't even pass the most basic night exam. If you want to study under my tutelage as an official student, there are 2 conditions. Deputy Director Hera, please speak. First, if you really have the ability, you can give birth to a unique talent tree like the Great Plague Elder. I need you to state at the night commendation ceremony that I'm the only teacher of your minor major, and that I've provided you with a lot of help while you're studying the knowledge of the library. Second, the long-term pass I've applied for you only means that you're a visiting scholar. Compared to the students in my department, your authority will be much lesser. However, since you have such a good relationship with Demps, you can ask him for help with some things that you can't do. I've heard that Mr. Black and White thinks highly of you, so it's a good thing for you to interact more with Demps in private. All right, in fact, Ms. Hera's request was that Han Dong would not be given a proper name and that he would be allowed to secretly study in the library. If he had some achievements in the future, he would have to say that he had received a great favor from the library and admit that he was a trainee knight nurtured by both the mystery branch and the library. However, being able to let Han Dong obtain a long-term pass was already a pretty good result, and the rest could be slowly considered. Chapter 360. Slightly to the inner side. Just as Han Dong agreed to study in the library as a visiting scholar, Hera's face turned red. Lady Hera's cheeks were actually slightly red, and she let out a sound that would cause one's imagination to run wild. The reason for this was because Demps was massaging her calf with his unique massage technique. A feeling similar to continuous electric shock spread from her calf muscles, and it was extremely comfortable. Hera's expression immediately changed, and she asked with a serious face, "Cough, cough. Nicholas, what do you major in occultism?" "I major in plague, and I'm also proficient in witchcraft." Hera showed a very disdainful expression. Witchcraft, a kind of inferior spell that requires a physical object to be activated. It relies on dark magic and the occult energy of living creatures as its foundation, trying to be on equal footing with magic. It's just a very narrow and restrictive spell. However, there are some similarities between witchcraft and magic. Normally, when students of my school enter the school, they will go through a very strict and detailed testing device to confirm their magic affinity and attribute bias. Perform your witchcraft once. I'll use it as a standard to judge your foundation and the direction of your future studies. Alright. The witchcraft that Han Dong spoke of was nothing more than the release of the seed's energy in the form of crows. In the Ghost Stories incident, this was the first time such a spell was used in a real battle, and it was quite effective. However, the crows that Han Dong released usually contained a certain amount of the Crowman's attributes, which were equivalent to the attributes outside the city. Currently, he could only hide the Crowman's attributes and release the crows purely using the seed's energy. Caw. A pure black crow immediately emerged from Han Dong's palm and flew towards Hera. When the crow was about 1 meter away, it crashed into a colorless and invisible magic shield. A black ripple spread out on the surface, and then slowly dissipated, leaving only a few crow feathers floating in the air. Hera stared at the spreading black ripple, thinking back to the move just now, and couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Sister Hera, this is considered black magic, right? Demps asked from the side. Bionic magic that is directly constructed without a physical carrier is indeed in the category of black magic. Kid, did you learn this from the witch deep in the swamp? Han Dong hurriedly denied and explained. No. You can say that I comprehended it myself. Due to the fact that Mr. Black and White gave me some of the characteristics of the crow, the last time I went out of the city to participate in an elite mission with Mr. Demps, we came into contact with the Crowmen tribe by chance. With all these reasons intertwined together, I came up with the idea of fusing the seed's energy with the crow's characteristics, thus casting this kind of magic. Not only can it release a single crow to attack directly, it can also release a large number of crows to disturb the enemy. Self-taught. If Han Dong majored in library, Lady Hera would definitely list him as an important target to nurture. No wonder the Crow Prophet took a liking to you. You do have some skills. Since you are proficient in black magic, you can take these books back and study them yourself. During the self-study period, you can go to any classroom in my library to listen and learn as a visiting scholar. If there were areas where his authority was insufficient, he would ask Demps for help. Come back to see me in a month. At that time, I will conduct a comprehensive investigation on you. If you pass, I will take you directly into the practical application of basic magic. You will be Demps's opponent in actual combat. Among students of the same level, no one can last 3 minutes against Demps. I hope you can be a long-term sparring partner. 3 thick books were thrown into Han Dong's hand. Overview of Basic Magic, Origins of Dark Magic, Prayer of Darkness and Light, Dark Section. Teacher Hera, may I ask, can you give me another book related to alchemy? You're a dual professional, and you still want to touch your sideline? You seem to have a lot of time. However, seeing that Han Dong's crow spell had a relatively high completion rate, Hera waved her hand and sent a copy of Pyramid, Foundation of Alchemy into Han Dong's hands. Remember, the study of your sideline must be done after you finish studying your main profession. If you want money, wait until you can combine 2 seeds and grow a unique tree of talents, just like the Great Pestilence Elder. Naturally, you will be valued by the Holy City, and a large commission will enter your account every month. I'm just purely interested in alchemy. I want to try and understand it. Alright, that's all for today. Demps and I still have some things to do, so you can go back by yourself. Of course, you can walk around the library if you want. After saying that, the deputy director didn't care about Han Dong's gaze at all, and immediately slid her fingers on Demps's body, indicating that he should massage other parts. Unexpectedly, Demps refused, and at the same time, moved the deputy director's long legs away. Sister Hera, I'm a bit tired today. Besides, my friend just came to the library, so I have to send him back. Let's talk about the massage next time. Okay, this kind of conversation surprised Han Dong. Demps's method was more brilliant than Han Dong expected. It seemed that by loosening the reins only to grasp them better, he had privately reached an equal relationship with the high and mighty deputy director. Han Dong smiled to himself as he stared at the handsome young man walking over from the side. They walked out of the main library building. This is the detailed plan of the library, indicating the buildings and special areas that need permission to enter. Also, this is an important notebook I made when I first came to the library. Take a look. It should save you a lot of detours. Demps was so enthusiastic that Han Dong seemed a bit uncomfortable. Habit. Demps's arm was also on Han Dong's shoulder for some reason, and it seemed to be more intimate. It's very difficult for me to see the same kind in the Holy City, let alone a student of the same level like you, and we even went through life and death together outside the city. Doesn't Mia count as well? She's just an insect possessor, a special student who passively contacted the outside of the city. But you and I are actively contacting the outside of the city. In the future, if you need anything in the library, just look for me, don't hesitate. Okay. Demps slowly moved his lips close to Han Dong's ear and whispered softly. By the way, you should be leaving the city soon, right? Can you take me with you? Han Dong had never told anyone about the manor. Demps's question made Han Dong's expression change slightly. Naturally, he could not refuse. Han Dong nodded and said a condition at the same time. Okay, but you have to meet Mr. Black and White. After all, I rely on Mr. Black and White's private carriage to leave the city. No problem. As long as Demps could meet Mr. Black and White, the security issue would be reviewed by him. If Mr. Black and White thought there was no problem, then at least Han Dong did not have to worry about leaking secret. He still had to be on guard. Chapter 361. There was a carriage carved with dark gold ravens. 3 horses covered in black fog were responsible for pulling the carriage. There was only one person in the holy city who owned such a carriage. They could leave the city directly without being checked. Mr. Black and White's real power in the holy city is completely higher than the department head and the chief of staff of the Knights of Plague. He is indeed a recognized prophet. According to estimates, the problems Mr. Black and White solves every year through astrology account for a quarter of the 13 Knights' annual workload. It's too important to be warned in advance. In the carriage, Demps and Han Dong sat opposite each other. He had already obtained Mr. Black and White's permission to leave the city together. However, Demps would not follow Han Dong to Stuart Manor. He would get off halfway. This way, Han Dong's worries were completely eliminated. After all, Han Dong did not want anyone to know about the manor's secret. The departure time was set to be 108 hours. Once the time was up, they would meet at the spot where Demps got off and return to the city together. Demps, speaking of which, where are you going? Demps used his pinky to gently lift the fringe hanging over his eyebrows and said softly, I'm going to a place where I can train my fingers. Because I haven't been able to find a reasonable way to leave the city without arousing suspicion, I haven't gone out alone for a long time. This time, it's all thanks to you. Well, I'll be leaving the city more frequently in the future. Let me know if you need anything. As long as it did not involve the manor's secret, Han Dong could bring Demps out of the city at any time. Not to mention, the two of them had a mutually beneficial relationship. The carriage's route was very different from before. According to Demps's request, the carriage crossed the forest and arrived at the edge of a cliff that was hundreds of meters high. There should have been nothing at the edge of the cliff, but there was a strange and eerie black stone house. Its surface was made up of spike-shaped black stones. A large number of finger bracelets hung from the top of the black stone spikes. Obviously, this black stone house was there to receive Demps. It took the initiative to receive him. This indirectly showed that Demps's status outside the city was not lower than his status inside the city. If he wanted to trace it back to its roots, he might be able to find out a terrifying background. Then let's meet again in 3 days. After Demps waved goodbye, he immediately entered the black stone house at the edge of the cliff. For a moment the entire house began to shake, and then it was completely separated from the cliff. He took a closer look. At the bottom of the black stone house, there were 2 long legs that were as tall as the cliff. The legs were also covered with black spiky leg hair, and they carried the black stone house away slowly. Demps Martin has a very deep background. He did not stay for too long. The carriage turned and immediately drove towards the chateau. Ga. 2 crowmen elders flew out from the castle to personally welcome Han Dong. Congratulations, my lord, for obtaining the treasure. Congratulations, my lord, for increasing your strength. These crowmen who had reached the level of hybrid demons had amazing observation skills. They could see the treasure aura on Han Dong, especially the extremely bright light source. It made these crowmen who had lived in the dark outside the city for a long time wary. I will stay in the chateau for 4 days. I might ask you for some knowledge about crow spells. The crowmen elders lowered their heads slightly. We will satisfy any request my lord has. Oh right, Han Dong immediately took off his glove. He immediately turned into the appearance of the Dozier Crow. However, compared to before, the Dozier Crow's state was a bit strange. In the world of ghost stories, the Dozier Crow had fused with Han Dong many times, and during that time, it was also nourished by the essence of the faceless skull, cooperating with the fusion to fight against the powerful ghost stories. The Dozier Crow was currently in a state of meditation. This little guy is about to evolve. Please allow me to bring the Dozier Crow back to the chateau. After all, it represents our crowmen tribe and will always be by your side, my lord. No mistakes are allowed during the evolution process. Can I observe the evolution process? My lord, please come with me. Han Dong was also quite curious about the evolution process of the crowmen. He immediately followed the two elders to the chateau. The chateau that once had a complicated design with multiple sections had been refurbished by the elders. Most of the walls on the first floor had been knocked down and changed into an open hall with some branches and vines as decorations. The Dozier Crow was placed in the middle of the hall, in the center of a circle made of skulls, black water, and tree branches. Visible to the naked eye, the meditating Dozier Crow was absorbing the energy of the circle. After a while, there were signs of flesh wriggling around its neck. It was about to grow a second head. The crowman elder explained on the side, "We crowmen are more inclined towards wizards. Our evolution is mainly in the brain, therefore, from the outside, it will mainly be in the head. The formation of two heads will allow the Dozier Crow to store more dark energy, increasing its intelligence and making it easier to weave spells in its head. When the time comes for a deeper connection with you, my lord, it will be able to provide even more power." The Dozier Crow is quite useful. Speaking of which, will the formation of a second head also give birth to a second consciousness? It won't. Having an extra head is only a sign of the brain expanding. It will still only have one consciousness. We crowmen are considered low-level beings. We can't be compared to your head. Haha. Following the formation of the Dozier Crow's second head, its feathers had also become more plump, black and shiny. Bring people, thank you. Due to the formation of the second head, the Dozier Crow's language ability was basically complete. It could speak a kind of stuttering English. However, from the Dozier Crow's eyes, it seemed to still have a trace of fear. The increase in strength did not change its weak personality. It's rare for you to return to the tribe. You can do whatever you want in the manor for the next few days. All right? Elders, if there's anything I need, I'll come find you. No need to worry too much about me. I'll go to the underground area earlier. Han Dong immediately went through a secret passage in the chateau, as if he was riding a slide, and directly reached the core experimental area underground. In the past, every time Han Dong came to the manor, Dr. Swollen would personally welcome him. Today there was no movement. Oh, the overall construction of the laboratory is basically complete. However, the doctor's aesthetic style is a bit dangerous. Speaking of which, where is the doctor? Walking in the laboratory area with the brain style, there was no trace of the doctor for a long time. However, not far away, a handicraft attracted Han Dong's attention. The surface was connected to various pipes and wires, and the inside was embedded with gears and small hydraulic devices. This is a brain? Chapter 362. The intricate brain was like a work of art. Its size was about the size of a fat person's body. The embedded gears, hydraulic devices, and parts of the metal structure reminded Han Dong of Stuart's former body structure. In fact, Han Dong was also very curious. As a ghoul, where did the metal drive system come from? He did not find any relevant information in Dr. Swollen's research. Dr. Swollen was the same as Han Dong. He was good at biological research, but he was not good at metal drive systems. When Han Dong approached the giant brain, he immediately smelled a familiar scent. Could this be? He waited for about half an hour. The slow-moving gears in the brain gradually stopped. The tubes that carried oxygen and nutrient solution were separated from the brain. Polluting tentacles immediately grew on the surface of the brain and combined with the body soaked in solution. A new body similar to Frankenstein was used to carry the brain. Not only did the brain increase in size, but there was also a metal structure inside. The weight increased greatly, and the original body was no longer suitable. A large and swollen skull wrapped around the brain, and the scalp was reinforced with several metal nuts. "Sir, you're here." The moment Dr. Swollen opened his eyes, he immediately knelt down. "This is?" Dr. Swollen immediately explained, "My lord, when I was expanding my laboratory, I accidentally found some remains of a great lord in the depths of the manor's ruins. I tried to introduce the metal body structure given by MOS into the remains into my brain. I didn't expect it to be so easy. In a short period of time, it caused a huge change in my brain. I feel that I'm faintly showing signs of evolving into a hybrid demon." Han Dong was also very happy that Dr. Swollen was able to grow. "You said that the metal drive system of the Great Lord came from the Old King?" "That's right. The manor only belonged to a small and unremarkable territory among the many territories in the Old King's hands. However, as the keeper of the land deed, the Great Lord could still receive some gifts from the Old King. Such a metal body is the main gift." Dr. Swollen was very excited when he talked about this matter. After all, he had greatly improved because of this. "Since this belongs to MO, you can use it as you wish. Is it okay? I've used a signal device to conduct relevant tests before this. This metal wreckage no longer has any signs of energy dissipation. My lord, the Life Laboratory and Production Workshop are basically complete. Do you need me to show you around?" "All right." Along the way, Han Dong was so meticulous that he checked the diameter of each conduit, the shape and number of blades of the paddle, the humidity control of the environment, and the precision of the concentration detection. All kinds of questions were raised. Professor Swollen followed by the side and took notes. After a few hours, he filled up an entire notebook. "My lord, aren't you only in your 20s? Dr. Swollen had thought that his newly built laboratory would be praised by the Lord, but he did not expect to be asked a lot of questions. This made the doctor sweat profusely, and he was curious about what the Lord Messenger used to do. Han Dong's rigor was something he had learned during his PhD studies. Biological reactions were based on enzymes, and the catalysts that came with living things had strict environmental requirements. Therefore, every step of biological experiments had to be taken into consideration. The details determine the production rate and whether or not high-quality products can be produced. You have to pay attention to the details I mentioned just now. If you need any materials, make a list and I'll provide it to you in one go." "All right. By the way, I have 2 things here for you." One of them was the cell essence that Han Dong had extracted from the condemned prisoners in the world of ghost stories. Han Dong did not plan to use it for himself. This kind of cell essence extracted from the human body was more suitable for research. He could try to inject muscle characteristics similar to those of the condemned prisoners into the zombie's body, or even introduce fighting skills. The doctor carefully took the petri dish. "I'll try my best to study it. Also, I've found an assistant for you. Can the life incubator in the lab be used now?" "Yes. Follow me." Professor Swollen led Han Dong to a separate experiment room. In the room filled with red filaments, there was a fleshy chamber that could hold cooked zombies. Part of the inspiration for this device came from the mother. Through Professor Swollen's methods, it was created to mimic the mother's structure and was used to nurture life. The cost was naturally not cheap. Just this device alone took Professor Swollen a whole month to build. Han Dong took out the important items: the core crystal from the S-level ghost story, a head nurse, and the cell essence after a day of cultivation already formed a cell community and had strong differentiation ability. Professor Swollen took the cell community in the petri dish and observed it through a self-made optical microscope. They are all stem cells, a type of cell with unlimited or immortal self-renewal ability, able to produce at least one type of highly differentiated progeny cell. Sir, how did you get them? The cell essence extracted by Han Dong with the syringe was a stem cell community with unlimited potential. Can they form an individual? With the core stabilizing, of course there's no problem. Following the squirming of the womb-like sac. After 2 hours of body reconstruction, the head nurse in a purple coat slid out of the sac, her whole body sticky and slippery. The moment she opened her eyes, the head nurse immediately glared at Han Dong. Her memory was still stuck in the lighthouse. Just as she was about to launch an attack on Han Dong, buzz! An extremely strong psychic power covered her whole body. The head nurse, who had just been reborn and was still in a weak state, was unable to move. This was the doctor's ability. At the same time, because of the hostility and invasion of foreign objects, hundreds of crowmen came to the underground area from different passages. Hundreds of pairs of black eyes stared at the head nurse, making her tremble in fear, and her will to fight instantly dissipated. Especially the gaze of the crowman elder. The pressure it brought was stronger than the Lantern Man. The Lantern Man, Kanejima Soichiro, is dead. I'll give you a chance to choose. First, obey me and follow this doctor in the laboratory. I believe you've already felt that the body I reconstructed for you is very different from before, mixed with an attribute called pollution. As long as you perform well, I'll give you the opportunity to grow. In the future, you'll break through the constraints of the ghost story and be stronger than the Lantern Man. Second, reject the proposal, and then you'll become fertilizer for the manor. I, Sakurada Lina, am willing to follow, sir. The head nurse was not Kanejima Soichiro's creation. She was an independent individual, but she was valued by Soichiro and joined the lighthouse force. Now, Soichiro was dead, and there was a stronger person to put her in an important position. She immediately knelt on both knees and acknowledged Han Dong as her new master. Chapter 363. Everything in the lab was done. In the remaining 4 days, the elders gave Han Dong the highest level of treatment. First, they arranged a clean room suitable for humans in the castle. At the same time, they also arranged 3 carefully selected female crowmen to take care of Han Dong's daily necessities. The so-called careful selection was also done according to human standard. The 3 female crowmen all had perfect figures, but their heads couldn't be changed, they were still crows' heads. In the end, Han Dong dismissed all the female crowmen and called for the dozier crows to help him. Every minute outside the city was precious. Han Dong planned to use this time to learn crowman's magic. Han Dong let the crowman elder act as his personal trainer in these 4 days to learn a primitive black magic from the crowman tribe. As for the introductory magic book Lady Hera gave him, he would slowly read it after he returned to the city. When there was only half a day left, Han Dong, who had already learned all the basic knowledge, felt hindered when casting crow magic. When he tried to do his best, a feeling of powerlessness would spread throughout his body. Ghoul arms are originally inclined towards muscle strength, and because ghouls were formed in graveyards, they carry a bit of plague characteristics. They are more suited for close combat and plague research rather than magic. This time, I received an extra 100 points for my use from my minor, so I need to find an arm with magic affinity. Moreover, I need an arm of high quality that I can use for a long time. Last time, I obtained the G-Virus because I had the card of fate to select movies with low difficulty, so I directly chose the one with low difficulty, Resident Evil. But this time, the card of fate can't be determined directly. Moreover, the arm I need must come from a high-difficulty dungeon, or even the night-level realm of fate. How to choose an arm is a big problem. Han Dong had thought of asking the Crowman Elder to cut off an arm and give it to him. A hybrid demon, Elder's arm must be strong enough, but it has its limitations. Han Dong wanted an arm that could fully control magic, but the Crowman Elder's main attribute leaned towards witchcraft and ancient crow magic. This was not what Han Dong wanted. Moreover, their time outside the city was about to end, and they didn't have the time to search for other hybrid demons that were proficient in darkness magic. What's more, hybrid demons were rare and scattered. Pure black magic-type hybrid demons were not easy to find. As for the clown's arm, it was also more of a physical item, and its magic resistance value was only E grade. If you want to get an ideal arm that can control magic in a short period of time, there is only one way: buy it. The industrial chain in the manor hadn't been formed yet, let alone building a complete trading chain. It would take some time to make money through the manor. I couldn't buy anything with the cash I had, so I had to use my connections. Whoever lends me money is my good brother. 4 days passed. The carriage from the manor came to the agreed place on the cliff. The black stone house had arrived early. When Demps walked out, compared to 4 days ago, his handsome face had some unconcealable tiredness. As soon as he stepped on the carriage, Han Dong reached out his hand. Demps' classmate, can you lend me some money? When it came to money, Han Dong first thought of Demps, who once treated Han Dong and the others to a high-end hotel. Thinking about it, Dempus, who was a scheming little handsome guy who was willing to do anything, should have earned a lot of money in private through the unique finger technique in the Holy City. He might even have a unique massage industry in the dark. Is 10,000 copper coins enough? Han Dong didn't give him a specific amount, but who knew that Demps would ask for 5 digits? I can only take out 10,000 copper coins right now. If you don't have enough, I have to make some changes. After a week, I can lend you at least 30,000. Han Dong thought of Demps sitting in the school and moving his fingers, and he could get 10,000 copper coins. Thinking about how it would take a long time to rebuild the manor's underground laboratory and how it hadn't been built yet, he couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable. Sometimes the gap between people was just that big. 10,000 is enough. 10,000 copper coins was a large amount in the Holy City. It was more than enough to buy a high-quality equipment. However, the finished equipment of unique and above quality was often priceless, but the materials were still available. Okay. I'll transfer it to your vault when I return to the city. Demps didn't ask what Han Dong wanted to do at all and frankly borrowed the money. Thank you, I'll return it as soon as possible. It's nothing. I'm not short of money. You can use it. I haven't closed my eyes these days, so I'll sleep for a while. Demps' eyelids began to tremble as soon as he sat in the carriage. He immediately fell asleep after saying this. Okay. The money was in place. The only thing left was how to make an equivalent exchange. Because of the existence of the faceless head, Han Dong could directly bring living things from the Destiny Realm back to reality. Other knights who entered the Destiny Realm would need to spend points to bring living things back to reality, or complete enslavement. Let the system judge that the living things were completely owned by the participants of the Destiny Realm, so they could be brought back normally. Except for necromancers, stitchers, and other professions, the living things in the Destiny Realm, for most knights, didn't have much value. A single arm, a single leg was no different from trash. Han Dong first ran to the trading market. Among the dazzling lineup of goods, he only found 2 arms from the Destiny Realm. One of them had been soaked in formalin solution for too long and had completely lost its vitality. The other one was just a monster's arm, an alien. Except for hardness and corrosion resistance, it didn't have any other characteristics. I can only reserve it. Holy Knights. A messenger passed through the sacred corridor carved with the murals of the Holy Maiden and came to an open inner courtyard. A golden-haired female knight in bright silver armor was practicing her striking ability here. Knight Celeste, you have a visitor. Can't you see that I'm very busy? I won't see anyone who isn't a corporal or above. He only said to let you take a look at the clockwork device. It seems like he has a message for you. Wino Celeste, who temporarily stopped practicing, picked up the clockwork device on the side and sent a voice message through the magic array embedded in it. Are you free? I have something to talk to you about. Celeste immediately stopped today's training program, tidied up her hair, and immediately went to the door. Chapter 364. Silver Armor and Blonde Hair. When Knight Celeste walked out of the door, a heavy holy aura immediately spread out. However, Han Dong, who was standing at the door, did not move at all. Sister Wino, long time no see. Wino crossed her arms in front of her chest. She was very unhappy that Han Dong did not look for her for a long time. Indeed, it has been a long time. I thought you had found a girlfriend in the mystery branch and completely forgot about me. I'm just a teammate. This time, I have something to ask of you. I wonder if you will be going to the Destiny Realm soon? In a month. Can you help me keep an eye out for magical life forms in the Destiny Realm? It would be best if they are humanoid. If possible, cut off a complete arm and bring it back to me. What do you want to do? I want to use it myself. Of course, if there is no magical life form, then forget it. If your team can bring me an arm that meets my requirements, I am willing to pay 5,000 copper coins for it. Please make sure that the arm is fresh. In fact, other than looking for Celeste, Han Dong also specifically asked Mr. Black and White to use his identity as a stitcher in the mystery branch to offer a high price of 5,000 copper coins in the market to buy the arm of a monster of fate. The requirement was that the arm had to meet the 2 points of magic affinity and humanoid. The Knight Squad that would be going to the Destiny Realm soon would naturally pay attention after hearing about the purchase. It was naturally a good thing to be able to earn some money. 5,000 copper coins? Wino was shocked. After all, she was an official knight. If she did not take money from her family, it would take her several years to earn 5,000 copper coins just by relying on the salary given by the Knight Squad. This is not a small amount. Although finished equipment is rarely sold, it is enough for you to buy some rare materials to make good equipment. Where did you get so much money? I borrowed it from a friend. I urgently need a magical arm now. I will keep an eye out for you. If the target needs to be killed, it is easy to bring back an arm. Knight Wino's meaning was clear. If she brought back an arm, she did not want Han Dong's money. Thank you, Sister Wino. Do you need me to spread the news? Sorry to trouble you. By the way, is Sister Wino free? I'll treat you to a meal. Let me change my clothes first. Wino Celeste had recently been preparing for the Destiny space in a month's time. Special training took up a lot of her time. Even if the corporal invited her to attend an event or treat her to a meal, she would directly reject him. But Han Dong was different. After the author's incident with the Cass family, Wino's attitude towards Han Dong was very special. Inside the restaurant. By the way, does Sister Winona know that Cass is here? I heard that Cass is doing some kind of special training. Cass Maldini. This kid had obtained a good evaluation twice in a row and was chosen as a top student by the Crusaders. He was selected by the Knights in advance. According to the general rules, he may be in a secret stronghold outside the city with the top students from other departments to carry out the Eve of Seed Destruction training. Elite students are training outside the city. That's right. By the way, what's the process of seed destruction? Han Dong had always been curious about how to germinate the seed in his brain after he was allocated 5 points for his major profession. How did the so-called broken seed proceed? How was it necessary to break the seed's outer skin and promote the growth of the sapling inside? Didn't the Crow Prophet tell you? I didn't ask. Seed destruction is extremely crucial to a knight's future. The prerequisite for breaking the seed is to kill a life form outside the city alone. Draw the tainted blood to break the seed of talent. Kill a life form outside the city alone? Doesn't the seed originate from the destiny space? I thought I would go to the destiny space and experience a special seed destruction. The destiny space can indiscriminately give us the flames of hope to fight against the life forms outside the city. Seed destruction is a test. Only a knight who can break the seed is worthy of being nurtured by destiny. Han Dong nodded. I see. It's because humans are forced into a desperate situation by the life forms outside the city that the destiny space opens. By the way, does killing normal monsters and evil work? From Han Dong's point of view, killing a low-level life form outside the city was not difficult. Han Dong had also defeated many family cadres in the Stuart manner. Of course it's not that simple. Seed destruction is often divided into 3 steps: search, fight, and seed destruction. The first step of searching is especially important. You have to find a rare, powerful life form outside the city that suits you as much as possible. If the life form outside the city is too weak, it doesn't suit the characteristics of a knight. In the end, the talent tree that grows after breaking the seed will be greatly limited. It is destined that the knight won't have much future development, and he won't even be able to become a knight. When breaking the seed, the life form outside the city will be recorded as important information in the knight's personal file. To a large extent, it will determine the knight's future development. Sister Wino, what kind of life form did you kill? Han Dong asked curiously. A father of sin that was only one step away from becoming a hybrid demon. At that time, with the help of a certain family background, I traveled through 100 kilometers of forest area and found the Albelo Cathedral ruins where many fallen monks gathered. It was also called the Fallen Church. After spending half a year searching, I finally found a father of sin that was alone. After successfully killing him, I broke the seed and formed a talent tree that suits me very well. Now, I can continue on the path of the Holy Army. Half a year. Yes. Half a year is quite long, but some apprentice knights will spend more time. After all, the academy will give the students all the time in the 4th year to break the seed. Once the seed is broken, you can smoothly participate in the knight selection during the graduation ceremony. Han Dong nodded thoughtfully. In other words, Han Dong, who had just started his 2nd year, still had 2 years to saturate his mysticism and library. Han Dong continued to ask, what if you kill a hybrid demon? What are you thinking? Demons, monsters, and inhumans that are about to become hybrid demons are thousands of miles away from a real hybrid demon. Out of 1,000 low-level life forms that have reached the limit, there may be one that can truly become a hybrid demon. A mere apprentice knight that has yet to break the seed wants to challenge a hybrid demon alone. You are underestimating the life forms outside the city. A year ago, the fallen baker that we killed in the underground area of the Baker family was a hybrid demon possession. But at that time, Baker was not able to use 100% of the hybrid demon's power, otherwise, it would have been even harder to deal with. Has anyone in the Holy City done it before? Hearing Han Dong's question, Wino felt as if her face was slapped. Wino felt as if she had been slapped in the face. In history, there were indeed mythical characters who killed hybrid demons to break the seed. The final knights that just returned to the city, the leader, Alex Reaper, once killed hybrid demons to break the seed. Chapter 365. Grim Reaper. Whenever this person was mentioned, Han Dong would think of a man riding a skeletal warhorse with a giant scythe in his hand. After all, Han Dong was on the escaping carriage and witnessed this epic scene up close. Knight Wino cleared her throat. Ahem, Captain Alex was born with an inseparable relationship with death. He was recognized as the best in the academy and his strength has reached the standard of a normal knight. By the way, are you thinking of challenging the hybrid demons? Haha. I'm just asking out of curiosity. I still have 2 years to go before I can break my seed. Han Dong smiled foolishly. In fact, he had already begun to plan to break his seed. When the time came, Han Dong would use the manor as his trump card and let the crowmen go out to find a suitable hybrid demon for Han Dong to break his seed. After all, this was related to the formation and future development of the talent tree. Han Dong had to do his best. Wino gently tapped Han Dong's forehead with the clean spoon in her hand. Hey, what are you thinking, by the way? Do you have any plans to join the Knights? With your talent, you should be able to join the Knights as a reserve and start the proper Knight training a year earlier. Sister Wino, are you trying to poach me? Haha, by the way, the Holy Knights definitely won't want someone like me. The two hadn't seen each other for a few months. Indeed, compared to the past, Han Dong had a dark aura. Such a person would definitely not be accepted by the Holy Knight. Why would we want you? I'm just asking if you have any plans. After all, I'm following Mr. Black and White. There's a higher possibility of joining the Knights of Plague, of course. There may be other options. At this moment, Knight Wino threw out an olive branch in advance. Ahem, when you become an official knight, there will often be investigation missions on your head. I'll book you in advance to join my operation team. I'm a rare all-round knight. I can resist and provide buffs. The team will only accept elite. Okay. Han Dong smiled. Naturally, he accepted it in advance. However, this was at least 2 years later. It was normal for the agreement to change. Since the matter of the arm had already been explained, Han Dong no longer thought about it and just waited for the goods to be delivered. In a month's time, the deputy curator, Madame Hera, still had to check on the results of Han Dong's magic studies. In the remaining time, Han Dong stayed in the library as a visiting scholar. He spent most of his time reading the introductory books given to him by Miss Hera. After familiarizing himself with the basic theories of magic, Han Dong began to head to the various classrooms to attend classes. His eyes were fixed on the magic instructor on the podium, but his hands were constantly taking note. He felt as if he had returned to his university days. After class, Han Dong would also pester the teacher to ask some very tricky and strange questions. Most of the time, they would be ignored by the teachers. Only a small number of teachers would be willing to answer them carefully. It was completely different from learning in the mystery branch. There was no shortcut to learning magic. They had to know the basics of magic. They had to memorize every basic magic incantation, and at the same time, they had to understand the repulsion between some of the incantations in order to avoid the backlash during the casting process. They could only lay the foundation through the most conventional methods of memorizing, understanding, and digesting. Unfortunately, Han Dong was very good at this. Han Dong cast a large net in the early stages and tried to understand every type of magic. However, he was different from a golden finger like Demps. He could not be proficient in all aspects. In the end, he found that the most suitable magic for him was still black magic. The teacher in charge of the introductory black magic had a rather strange personality. Every time Han Dong went up to ask, he would be given the cold shoulder. For a visiting scholar like Han Dong, he would not answer any questions at all. At the same time, during this period of learning, due to the high reward of 5,000 copper coins, 3 knight squads had already contacted Han Dong. 2 of the arms were taken from ordinary magic individuals in fate events and were not boss level. There was nothing too special about them, so naturally, Han Dong would not accept them. One of the arms made Han Dong somewhat tempted. It was taken from a disciple of the magician Merlin in the world of Hellboy. His name was Gregory E. Dillas, a fire spell mage. It belonged to this knight squad. Halfway through, they triggered the clue of the sword in the stone and were led to the hidden boss in Merlin's burial mountain. Its strength was quite strong. The arm that was brought back was sealed with ice crystals, and the fire spell patterns could still be seen on the surface of the arm. Unfortunately, Han Dong was not good at fire magic, otherwise, he would definitely buy this arm. There was only 1 day left before the magic assessment. Han Dong planned to use Demp's authority to sleep in the library tonight. Unexpectedly, the clockwork watch received a message from an unknown sender, asking Han Dong to inspect the goods. The meeting place was set at a tavern in the commercial street of the Night Academy. To a certain extent, it seemed that the other party was also an apprentice knight who had yet to graduate. Han Dong did not have much hope for this transaction at first. After all, the arm he wanted had to come from a powerhouse. However, Han Dong did not have anything to do today, and the academy was not far away, so he agreed to the meeting. However, when Han Dong arrived at the tavern and met the other party in the private room, he was slightly scared. Senior Lucius, Senior Luns, Senior Jun. What a coincidence! The person who found Han Dong for the transaction was actually his former nemesis, the special team that was tricked by Han Dong during the night training. These 3 people stood at the top of their batch of apprentice knights. After not seeing them for a few months, the 3 of them had also risen to senior year and would attract a seed breaker. In front of him, the red-haired blood knight Lucius, who exuded a vampire's temperament, had a completely different aura from a few months ago. Today, Lucius had taken off his crimson knight armor. He wore a crimson suit made of high-grade silk. Congratulations, Senior Lucius, for successfully breaking the seed. Han Dong immediately congratulated him to ease the awkward atmosphere. The necromancer apprentice, Luns, who was sitting at the side, was angry when he saw Han Dong. After all, he was almost killed by this kid. In the end, he was unable to kill the Great Lord and obtain the reward he deserved. It's actually you who sent the transaction post. Luns, this is the academy area. Also, we are here to make a transaction. After being reprimanded by Lucius, Luns immediately suppressed his anger. At the same time, the squirming shadow beside Han Dong returned to Jin's body. Pat pat. Lucius patted the sofa beside him with his hand, indicating for Han Dong to sit next to him. A pair of fangs could be faintly seen between his crimson lip. As soon as Han Dong sat down, a light arm with a blood-red aura rested on Han Dong's shoulder. Lucius's arm was light and slender, not like a man's arm at all. At the same time, a wooden box sealed with many incantations was placed on the table. We want 8,000 copper coins for this arm. I think it's worth the price. Chapter 366. Han Dong didn't care about the murderous aura emitted from Lucius' body and the blood that might have seeped into his skin. He also didn't care about the high price. Staring at the ancient wooden box with a seal on the table, he vaguely smelled the scent of black magic. Han Dong couldn't help but reach out to touch the wooden box, but his hand was immediately blocked by blood that appeared out of thin air. Don't be in a hurry to touch it. This thing is quite dangerous. Since it's a transaction, we have to see the money before we can let you inspect the goods. Okay. Han Dong decisively turned on the treasury function in his wind-up watch, showing the 10,000 gold coins stored inside. I didn't expect you to get so much money. If I had known, I would have asked for 10,000 gold coins. Take the extra as compensation for our mental trauma. Haha. Can I see the goods first? Han Dong laughed awkwardly. Yes. Before opening the wooden box, Lucius bit his finger and let the blood that flowed out from his body sprinkle on the table. Under his control, the blood formed an external formation to suppress the arm in the wooden box. At the same time, Senior Sister Jin also controlled the shadows in the area. Luan Zhe also mobilized the death energy in his body, ready to assist in suppressing the arm. When the wooden box was opened, a small amount of sand flew in the air and even formed a small sand vortex. However, with the activation of the blood formation, the flying sand was immediately suppressed and scattered on the table and wrapped in blood. Inside the wooden box was a mummified arm wrapped in wrinkled and partially decayed white bandages. This white bandage seemed to be a layer of seal. Let me briefly explain the origin of this arm. First of all, there is absolutely no problem with the freshness of this arm. It has been separated from the main body for less than 3 days. Moreover, it has a certain level of self-awareness. Okay. Han Dong nodded. He could clearly feel that the arm was alive. My teammates and I happened to have a suitable card of fate and urgently needed some items from the Destiny world. Without requiring points, we entered the Destiny world during the cooldown period. The event we encountered was called the Mummy. This arm came from High Priest Imhotep, who was sealed in the depths of the Hamunatha. Han Dong had naturally watched this classic movie when he was alive. It was considered one of the pinnacle of fantasy movies at that time. This high priest of ancient Egypt was punished for committing a serious crime and was eventually turned into a mummy that could only bring destruction and disaster to the world, in Han Dong's opinion. The level of such a movie should be something that only corporal knights could come into contact with. Who would have thought that Lucius, who had just broken his seed, would actually encounter it? You killed the high priest. No. Our mission isn't to kill him. We just want to take away some important items. The great shaman who keeps reviving will keep hindering us during this process. Every time he sucked a grave robber dry, he would recover a portion of his strength. The fate event's speed shift was set at the moment when the high priestess fully recovered. Let's leave before he fully recovers. After all, if we don't get any points, there's not much point in completing the quest perfectly. As long as we get what we want, it's fine. This arm was perfectly cut off by Jean when the High Priest Imhotep had just recovered to the second stage. I want this arm. Han Dong did not hesitate and directly transferred 8,000 copper coins to Lucius through the portable transfer function of the vault. Click. The wooden box closed and the arm was sealed again. Happy trading. Although there was a big conflict between Han Dong and them. But after the last incident outside the city, Lucius immediately investigated Han Dong's identity in private and finally found a person, Mr. Black and White. Therefore, it was not appropriate to find trouble with Han Dong in the academy. If Han Dong paid for the transaction here and they did not give him the goods, Mr. Black and White would definitely be the first to know. Besides, such an arm was not of much use to them. 8,000 copper coins were enough for Lucius to buy some precious materials to forge the equipment he needed to reach the night stage. Thank you again, Senior. Han Dong quickly left with the wooden box. Lunz, the necromancer apprentice, was furious, but he did not dare to act impulsively because of Lucius's presence. Captain, this kid completely messed up our plan. Originally, our team could have obtained the priceless ghoul medal. In the end, we didn't get anything and almost got into trouble. Lucius was not angry at all and said calmly, "This is our own problem. The price of underestimating a person and not being cautious enough. Lunz, after today, don't find trouble with this student again. I was in close contact with him just now, and this guy was not affected by my evil spirit. Also, I can feel a rather strange energy from his body, so much so that my blood can't penetrate it normally." Lunz was surprised. "How is that possible? Captain, didn't you already break the seed? This student of the Crow Prophet should have more secrets hidden in his body than all of us imagined. I suspect that the Old King incident is directly related to this person. In short, let's pretend that nothing happened in the past. This money will be divided equally between the two of you. Use it to buy some necessary materials to deal with the broken seed." Han Dong left the tavern. He had completely forgotten the oppressive feeling brought by Lucius's group. Concentrating on the arm in the wooden box, he immediately called for a high-class carriage to return to the Mystery Branch. Once the usability of the arm was detected, Han Dong would undergo a qualitative change in his body tonight. It really came true. The undying sacrifice Imhotep, the arm of the high priest that can bring great disaster to the world in the movies, was actually obtained like this. This arm corresponds to the black magic that originated from ancient Egypt in the truest sense. It's completely worth the price. Dempsey's money, I'll return it in the future. Although this arm is an incomplete cut-off before Imhotep fully recovered, it's completely enough for me to use now. On the contrary, I'm still unable to control a complete arm at the moment. At the same time, Imhotep's mummified arm that needs to be constantly perfected also briefly states that this arm still has room for improvement. It can be continuously perfected in the future by meeting certain conditions and even continue to improve its quality. Han Dong activated his little magic eye to observe the surroundings of the carriage throughout the journey to ensure that nothing unexpected happened during the journey to the mystery branch. Most importantly, why is this arm reacting to my head? Chapter 367. When the carriage entered the mystery branch and was enveloped by the dark moon, Han Dong felt at ease. This arm was too important to him. Moreover, Han Dong had never encountered a situation where a living creature in the destiny realm could react to his brain. Strange, why would a living creature in the destiny realm react to my brain? The formation of the Gate of Destiny was to give humans a chance. It gave humans unimaginable power to deal with the life forms outside the city. Destiny itself absolutely rejected the life forms outside the city. I can't feel any aura of pollution from this arm, but it has a subtle reaction with my brain. Is it related to the origin of Imhotep itself or some kind of attribute? He was full of doubts. When Han Dong arrived at the Dark Moon Tower, he immediately took the elevator to the top floor. However, just as the elevator was slowly rising, a shadow moved in the corner. Senior Sister Zhen, who was wearing a mask, revealed her true form. Han Dong immediately turned sideways and faced Senior Sister Zhen, but he did not take out his combat state. Han Dong knew very well that this was the Dark Moon Tower, and Mr. Black and White was monitoring everything. A mystery branch student must not cause trouble here. Senior Sister, what's the matter? I'm just curious why you spent such a high price to buy this arm. Your first teacher is Teacher Pasha from the sewers, and she specializes in the study of the plague. Your second teacher is Mr. Black and White. Neither of them has anything to do with sewing. Can you tell me? Senior Sister Zhen seemed to be asking out of curiosity, but in fact, she had other thoughts. It seemed that she was very interested in this excellent junior brother. If I say that I taught myself sewing, would you believe me? When Han Dong gave such a reply, he could feel the killing intent in Senior Sister Zhen's eyes. Haha, I'm just kidding. Just treat it as a secret between us. I hope you won't tell anyone. After this Destiny Realm ends, I will put all my points into my second profession, a library. Currently, I'm minoring in magic, mainly related to the study of black magic. The arm of Imhotep is very helpful for my studies. In addition, I really taught myself some sewing. I'm not lying to you. Minoring? Do you want to ruin your own future? Putting aside the grudges between the two of them. In terms of talent alone, Senior Sister Zhen still thought highly of her junior, Han Dong. However, she couldn't understand why Han Dong had chosen to minor in operations. After all, not everyone was an anomaly like the Great Plague Boss. If one wanted to fuse a tree seed and create a brand new talent tree, it wasn't something that could be done with just hard work and talent. It also required a combination of opportunity and luck. I'm just following my heart. It's still too early to say if it's ruined. I look forward to your performance in 2 years. Senior Sister Zhen quickly blended into the shadows and disappeared. Han Dong had a helpless look on his face. Since this highly talented senior sister who could control shadows could appear beside him at any time in the academy, it meant that she could also appear at any time outside the academy. He could even kill Han Dong while he was sleeping. He had to stay at a respectful distance and not offend this senior sister. The stargazing room. Mr. Black and White naturally knew what had happened. He had already opened a hidden and spacious compartment for Han Dong in advance. Before bringing the arm into the biological laboratory, Han Dong had to make sure that the arm wouldn't hurt his brain. Therefore, he first placed the wooden box in the center of the room. Book of the Dead, I part copy. He imitated Lucius's method. Before opening the box, Han Dong first drew a seal array. This kind of eye array was enough to suppress an arm separated from Imhotep's body. Double insurance. Han Dong also asked Togu to appear and be ready to bind the arm with an iron chain at any time. Box opening. It was similar to the previous situation. The yellow sand flew away, and a small sandstorm vortex formed in the compartment. The array was activated. Buzz. The yellow sand quickly disintegrated and fell. Gurgle gurgle. Eyes grew on the ground, the ceiling, and even the surface of the wooden box and the old bandage wrapped around the arm, completely suppressing the arm. There's no problem with the freshness of such an arm with self-awareness. Let's take a look at the bandage. Han Dong used the G-arm to remove the bandage. The moment his index finger touched the bandage, bursts of tingling pain immediately spread from his fingertip. Looking closely, Han Dong's index finger was completely decertified. It was more troublesome than Han Dong expected. If he couldn't overcome the effects of desertification, the subsequent connection of the arm would become a problem. G-virus characteristics were activated. The finger immediately grew new flesh. At the same time, he used the crow magic he currently mastered to offset the effects of desertification. He gradually removed the layers of bandage. A mummy's arm with less than 20% meat coverage was revealed in Han Dong's eyes. There were signs of yellow sand flowing between the dried and decayed meat. Han Dong even saw a sacred beetle with a golden pattern on its shell drilling in and out of the meat. However, upon closer inspection, he found that such a sacred beetle was not an individual life form, but a magic creature composed of yellow sand. It was one of the abilities attached to this arm. Is this the arm of the undead sacrifice? I must bring it back to the biological laboratory to test its data. Just as Han Dong was considering the risks involved, a voice suddenly sounded. A voice came from his brain as if it had self-consciousness. Living creatures brought to the portable prison will be suppressed by the prison. There is no need to worry about its threat. With such a reply, Han Dong decisively brought it back to the laboratory. He removed the clown's arm that was originally fixed on the scanner. He carefully placed the arm in the wooden box on the scanner. Arm testing. Estimated time required is 1 hour 38 minutes. The more complex the structure of the limb, the longer the testing time. While waiting, Han Dong began another necessary indication, the transformation of essence into weight. Since the end of The Clown's Resurrection, Part 1, Han Dong's cell weight had reached the maximum limit, 200. Since then, he had been collecting cell essence, including the essence extracted from the cadres in Stuart Manor and a large amount of cell essence obtained in the world of ghost stories. He came to the clean workbench. Holding a metal-rimmed syringe, he injected all the cell essence into Han Dong's main body. After the cell essence, stem cells, from other life forms were absorbed by the main body cells, the cell mass grew and its weight increased. Soon, it reached 300 points of weight. Cell essence absorption complete. Current weight of individual, 200 used, 300 upper limit. Han Dong's current wish was that Imhotep's arm did not exceed 100 points of weight. Other costs were acceptable. Time was up. Beep, beep, beep. A test report came from the side. Chapter 368. Hand of the Undead Sacrificer. Name shown in purple font. Equality. Unique body quality from low to high is as follows: gray, rough; white, normal; green, good; blue, rare; purple, unique; pink, epic; gold, legendary; dark gold, empire. A weight requirement: 80 points, basic attributes: strength, E to reflex, C plus hardness, A to toughness, D to magic resistance, A. Ordinary characteristics: yellow sand grants black magic system or sand. This ability needs to be improved through self-cultivation and gradually unlocks advanced sand abilities. Examples of system abilities: frowny face desertification, through direct contact, regardless of whether it is an organism or an organism, it will undergo a structural change at the molecular level, forming a large amount of silica crystal sand. Armor of sand constructs an extremely dense yellow sand barrier to block any form of damage. This ability is better when used in conjunction with the sacred beetle. Magic arrays written in the yellow sand can also block magic and soul damage. Sandstorm consumes a large amount of energy to create a desert storm that can tear everything apart. Also, the arm has a sand body attribute. As long as the arm is not completely removed, it can be regenerated through sand. Unique characteristics: power of the undead sacrificer. LV1 fuses with the will of the undead sacrificer to increase the affinity for black magic. At the same time, when the individual releases black magic, there is a certain probability of reducing or even eliminating the casting time. This effect can be improved as the arm is perfected. Note: the arm is taken from the incomplete undead sacrificer Imhotep, second stage. Therefore, this arm has the possibility of being perfected. Ordinary flesh and blood cannot satisfy the needs of this arm. Some ancient Egyptian sacred objects, ancient hearts, or the bodies of high-level black magic creatures can satisfy the needs of this arm. Slogan: Sands of the desert, rise and block off the sun. Desert, raise your sand and block the sun's light. Wow! Han Dong could not help but exclaim after reading the description on the paper. It completely satisfied all the requirements that Han Dong had set. The quality was the same as the clown's arm, both were unique purple. The weight required was 10 points more than the clown's arm, but it was still within the limit of 100 points. Most importantly, the unique characteristic attached to this arm was very powerful. Han Dong felt that the 8,000 copper coins were well spent just based on the fact that it could increase an individual's affinity with black magic. Magic resistance. A. Through a complete set of sand magic system, imbued with the will of the undying sacrificer, and at the same time, it has the potential to grow. Oh my God! Han Dong couldn't wait to integrate such an arm into his body. Excitement was one thing. Han Dong, who had calmed down, asked the artificial intelligence in the laboratory, "Will it be dangerous for me to touch this arm?" Detected that the individual has a magical constitution. The weight is suitable. The High Priest's remnant will has been removed during the detection process. There is no danger. Has it been removed? Meaningless, useless, and dangerous elements will be automatically removed by the laboratory. Han Dong used the cutting tools in the laboratory to easily cut off the relatively fragile left arm. The plague community in the body cooperated with the G-virus and quickly stopped the bleeding. As the remnant consciousness in the hand of the undying sacrificer had been completely removed, when Han Dong grabbed the arm with his right hand, it was no longer affected by the desertification. It was closer to the arm than the incision. When it approached, the incision on Han Dong's left shoulder took the initiative to grow tentacles with spots to welcome the mummy's arm. Squeak squeak. The tentacles were an important connection medium. The arm is in the process of connecting, the weight limit has changed. 280,300 the next day. Library. Han Dong would undergo a month-long learning test at the request of Ms. Hera, the deputy curator. At 9 o'clock in the morning, Han Dong arrived at the third library on time. Demps was naturally here too. Coincidentally today, the second-year students of the library will be unified in the Magic Pivot for the quarterly exam. I've already added your name. Come with me. Quarterly exam? As a mystery apprentice, Han Dong had never experienced any kind of exam. Studying in the mystery department was completely based on following their respective mentors. They could do whatever they wanted. There was no such systematic learning as lectures and exams. Of course, the witch apprentices in the Deadwater Swamp still had more detailed learning and assessment standard. Demps was here too. The two followed Ms. Hera and left the library building, heading towards the special area located in the south, the Magic Pivot. As the name suggested, this was a magic hub area. The libraries in the library building were used to provide a quiet place for students to read books. The Magic Pivot was a field for students to practice magic. The Magic Pivot was a giant wooden pillar that spiraled into the sky. The different floors of the tree trunk corresponded to the teleportation doors of different practice spaces. The concentration of magic elements mixed in different spaces was quite different. Some spaces even had elemental giants that allowed magic apprentices to directly practice combat. Hera led the two of them through a higher branch and stepped into the teleportation door. The pure white cubic space was a practice space with light spots of various elements floating inside. Casting spells here could reduce mana consumption to a certain extent. Currently, more than 100 magic apprentices were gathered here. Many of the mentors in charge were also here. The main person in charge of this season's exam was Ms. Hera. Ms. Hera. When Hera led the two students in, everyone lowered their heads to show their respect. Demp. Many students immediately noticed the British-style young man beside Hera. He had a unique aura. Demp's name had gradually become famous in the first year. It could be said that there was no one in the library who didn't know him. Quite a number of girls were Dempus' little fangirls, but it was a pity that Dempus was only interested in older females. Who's that? I've never seen him before. There were also students who noticed the unfamiliar youth behind Hera. He was 1.7 meters tall and had a thin and yellow body. Such a weak body was not even comparable to the average mage. Today's exam will be divided into two parts. First, I'll create a high-level training puppet. You'll need to use your best spells in order to attack or heal the puppet. The puppet will absorb your spells to determine whether you've reached the basic level. Second, those who have reached the basic level will put on a magic coat in order to participate in a large-scale melee. Once the magic coat is broken, you'll lose the competition. The other teachers and I will grade you according to your performance. It will be the final result of this season's exam. Do not continue to cast spells after the magic coat is broken, or you'll be severely punished. Chapter 369. I think I've seen this person in class before. He always sits in the last row. Now that you mention it, I remember him too. He's a student who only appeared recently. After class, no matter what the teacher's personality is, he dares to pester them and ask questions. I heard that he even dares to pester Jose, who teaches black magic theory. He's really not afraid of death. To be honest, I quite admire him. I heard that there's a visiting scholar setting in the academy that allows students from other faculties to come and listen to our classes. After all, the origins of magic involve various fields. This person might be a visiting scholar. I think he's a magic apprentice. Look at his body, there's no way he's a crusader or has control. Since Han Dong appeared with Hera, the discussion about him gradually increased. Han Dong didn't care too much. He was only here to fulfill Hera's request. After meeting the requirements, Han Dong could continue his studies in the library. He hid his strength as much as possible, using the dazzling pearl demps as a protective umbrella. Not long after, a high-level activity doll was created by Ms. Hera. Nearly 200 magic apprentices began to line up to be tested. They only had one chance to cast a spell. If the quality and purity of the spell did not meet the requirements, the non-directional spell would not hit the target. Most magic apprentices used the most common and easy-to-control elemental spells, with Fireball and Ice Arrow as the most common, These basic spells also contained enough energy and were easy to control. Of course, there were also a few exceptions. The black magic students shone brightly during this period. A girl with long hair draped in front of her, looking slightly sinister, specialized in necromancy. She could actually construct a white bone spear out of thin air. Compared to other elemental spells, this bone spear was shockingly powerful, and its shooting speed was more than twice that of elemental spells. Hera revealed a rather surprised expression. In addition, there was a feminine-looking male apprentice who was dressed in female clothing. Slowly rubbing his hands together, he created a shadow magic ball that moved at a similar speed. The magic ball enveloped the doll, and then it caused a corrosive implosion, leaving a scar on the doll's surface. It was very powerful. Of course, although the spells used by black magic students were more powerful, the risks they had to bear were also much higher than those of regular mages. Moreover, regular elemental mages were also very effective against certain life forms whose attributes were countered. There was no advantage or disadvantage between the two. Since Han Dong's name was added later, he was naturally the last one. He quietly observed the magic apprentices casting spells. The little magic I was able to secretly peek into the flow of mana in the students' bodies. It was very clear that some of the students had hidden part of their strength in the first round of the examination. Soon it was Dempsey's turn. There was no need to chant, nor was there any need for casting spells, magic books, accessories, or staffs. With a flick of his finger, a fireball quickly smashed into the doll. The amount of energy absorbed was just enough to reach the standard. Almost no novice knight of the same level could achieve such fine control of energy. When Demps retreated, Han Dong deliberately whispered beside him, "Hold back a little in the battle later. Vice Captain, please go easy on me. I'm afraid of you." Demps walked past him with a terrified expression. Finally, it was Han Dong's turn. Naturally, everyone focused their attention on the visiting scholar. Han Dong put his left arm behind his back for the time being. Just like a month ago, a black crow condensed in his palm and quickly flew towards the doll. All of a sudden, an invisible disturbance hit him. Han Dong immediately tilted his head and glanced at the vice-curator. The magic interference just now was obviously Madame Hera's doing, but ordinary people simply wouldn't notice. The invisible interference directly disrupted the flow of energy in the crow's body, causing the left and right wings to spread unevenly. If this continued, the target would be lost and Han Dong would be eliminated. The rules forbade second casting, so Han Dong's only chance was to secretly adjust the crow before it flew over. Dark lines flowed on the surface of his left arm. Because of the sleeve, no one saw it. A kind of domain was released, imperceptibly repairing the flow of energy in the crow's body. The crow accurately drilled into the doll's body and immediately reached the standard. Domain energy replenishment. This kid's progress is so fast? After seeing Han Dong's performance, surprise flashed through Madame Hera's eyes. The other teachers present also looked at him strangely. Among the students, only Demps observed the series of changes just now. He secretly shook his head and sighed. The first exam was over. The quality of the magic released by 95% of the students was up to standard. Next, they would receive a magic coat commonly used between apprentices. This coat would provide a kind of magic shield that protected the whole body. Once the magic shield was broken, they would be considered eliminated. Han Dong stared at the tight white robe on his body. A very ordinary magic coat. The protection it provides is very limited. Basically, it will disintegrate after being hit by 2 spells. This kind of chaotic battle will inevitably reduce the number of people in a short time. Try to avoid fighting in the early stages as much as possible. Han Dong moved his body slightly. Since this was a test for mages, Han Dong tried not to use his physical body or occult abilities as much as possible. Let me remind you, please abide by the rules. Otherwise, it won't be as simple as failing. Little guys, start fighting. Several teachers took to the air to observe the performance of the apprentices more directly from the sky. At this stage, the apprentices were basically unable to fly. After all, if they wanted to overcome gravity with magic, relying only on the energy of the seed was completely insufficient. For a moment, a large-scale battle of basic magic began. Han Dong took the initiative to avoid fighting, moving in the direction with fewer people as much as possible. But because there were 200 people fighting on the same stage, eliminating other students would give extra points. Immediately, a lot of magic locked onto Han Dong and came at him. However, before the flying fireballs could hit the magic shield, they were easily resolved by Han Dong's means of seeing through. In the case of someone taking the initiative to attack, Han Dong waved his hand, and several crows directly bit through the opponent's magic shield. Unknowingly, 4 people had been eliminated by Han Dong. After the other apprentices noticed this, they no longer bothered Han Dong. About 10 minutes of magic melee passed. As Han Dong predicted, 90% of the apprentices had been eliminated. Only 7 people were left on the field. Demps and Han Dong were the furthest apart, in the diagonal area. Those who were left were this year's elite magic apprentices. Suddenly, a temporarily formed small group of 3 people came to Han Dong. They didn't come to trouble Han Dong, but to build a relationship. Do you want to form a temporary alliance with us? Let's defeat Demps first, and then we'll see who's better. Haha, no. With Han Dong's refusal, the 3 immediately locked onto him. Chapter 370. The 3 people who besieged Han Dong were the best among the apprentice knights in the library. First of all, it was the cross-dressing big shot who caused damage to the puppet through shadow implosion in the benchmark test. His name was Nelson. Like Han Dong, he was an apprentice who practiced black magic and was proficient in shadow spells. Shadow magic itself was extremely corrosive. Moreover, Nelson had fused an explosive element into the shadow, which maximized the damage of the shadow magic and could break the magic shield with one hit. The other 2 apprentices were not ordinary either. Conanan Hall. He had a physical body similar to that of a crusader, and a domineering aura that was rarely seen among mages. He was an extremely rare melee mage who majored in fire magic. Fate equipment, bonefire ring, relying on the magic condensing effect of the ring. He could condense 2 burning fireblade. This kind of magic weapon was different from ordinary weapons. The fire blades could freely change their length and distance during the attack, and they could also spray flames directly from the blade. They could even change their shape. The last female apprentice of the 3 was named Sabrina Hill. She was a light mage, but not a support-type priest of holy light. Instead, she was a very rare offensive light mage. This also gave this girl a unique charm. Her queen-like brilliance was very rare. Moreover, she was not at all interested in Demps, who was handsome, cold, and recognized as the strongest and most talented. She even wanted to defeat Demps herself to prove herself. Since Han Dong and Demps appeared together with the deputy curator at the beginning, at the moment they also rejected the suggestion of joining forces. Therefore, the 3 apprentices regarded Han Dong as one of Demps' partners and had to be dealt with in advance. In their eyes, the only difficult one to deal with was Demp. Fire Blade Conanan directly attacked from the front. The other 2 apprentices attacked from the side at a tricky angle. The 3 of them knew very well that the magic shield provided by this magic coat for training was very fragile. If the 3 of them attacked at the same time, as long as one of them could touch the magic shield outside Han Dong's body, the battle would be over. Forming a small faction in private. That's not good, Han Dong muttered. However, with so many magic teachers present, Han Dong couldn't go all out. He tried his best to use magic against magic. The close combat mage, Conanan, bore the brunt of the attack. The flame blade in his hand grew to 1 meter long. One could even faintly make out the shape of a dragon's head at the tip of the fire blade. One up and one down, a double slash. In the meantime, Nelson released 5 shadow spheres the size of ping-pong balls from his side. They would explode the moment they got close to Han Dong. As for Sabrina, she had circled to a very tricky position. He put his index and middle fingers together, and immediately, a large number of light dots appeared from his fingertips, shooting towards Han Dong like bullets. 3 different attacks came from different directions. Moreover, all of them were multi-layered attacks that were difficult to dodge. Han Dong, who was hiding in the corner, had no chance of dodging. His magic shield was so fragile that it could break at any time. Moreover, such a joint attack could not only break the magic shield, but also cause great damage to the body. Ordinary mages could be seriously injured or even killed. Ding! Boom! Continuous explosions came from the point of contact. Many of the teachers who were watching the battle in the sky wanted to intervene to prevent casualties during the quarterly examination. However, they were all stopped by Ms. Hera. It was because Ms. Hera knew a piece of information. Some time ago, one night when she was chatting with Demps in the private residence, she asked a question. Ms. Hera, who was leaning on Demps' shoulder, did not have the usual dignity of the deputy director. She stroked Demps' arm with her fingers and asked, "Mr. Martin, there seem to be a lot of talents in this batch of students. Commander Cayman's grandson, and I heard that the adopted daughter of great blacksmith Hedriger is also among them. Is there anything worthy of your attention? Both of them are very powerful. Abel seems to have a terrifying beast sealed in his body, and Wen Li's body is probably unique in the Holy City. However, I can barely deal with them." Haha. Does that mean that the night selection in 2 years will become your personal stage? By then, I, as a direct teacher, will be proud. It's not that simple. Teacher, have you heard that Mr. Black and White has taken in a student? Oh? That crow has taken in a student? Some time ago, I sparred with this student. Hera was surprised. After all, Demps did not like sparring with others. Besides, among the students in this batch of library students, there was basically no one who could really spar with Demps in a true one-on-one. Hera, as the deputy director, had directly invited the senior students to cooperate with Demps during his daily practical training. She even got some lecturers to spar with Demps. What was the result? Did that student hurt you? There shouldn't be anyone in this batch who can beat you, right? I've lost. Demps answered very calmly. Are you kidding? How could my Mr. Martin lose? Did you go easy on him? Or did that person use some sinister method that you have never seen before? No, I really couldn't beat him. Speaking of which, that student seems to be very interested in magic. He might come to our library to visit and learn. Hera did not believe that Demps would lose, so she continued to ask about this matter. You lost? What's his background? I'm not too sure, but he was chosen by Mr. Black and White as soon as he entered the school. In terms of planning, layout, and control of details, he's not worse than me. Hera was a little unhappy. If this person really wants to come to the library, just bring him here. I want to see what kind of genius he is. Currently, Hera stared at the magic explosion point and muttered softly, if he was eliminated at this level. The so-called defeat of Demps in a sparring match was obviously because Demps was not in a good state that day. However, just as the dust raised by the shadow explosion dissipated, everyone present was shocked. Of course, this included the magic teachers. Rare species, sand type? Isn't this guy proficient in black magic and not a crow? In the corner, an indestructible sand barrier enveloped Han Dong. There was even a circle of dark gold scarab marks on the barrier's surface. What's this? When the melee mage Conan's fire blade slashed heavily on the barrier's surface, it only shattered a few grains of sand, but the impact caused his hand to split open. Before he could react, A sharp spike made of yellow sand suddenly pierced through the magic shield on the surface of his body. Eliminated. Chapter 371. The moment Konanin, the melee mage, was eliminated, the two magic apprentices, who were casting long-range spells, retreated almost at the same time. At this time, the yellow sand began to flow again. Two large sand arms were built on the surface of the yellow sand barrier, and an eye of quicksand grew out of the palms, completely locking onto the two apprentices. The speed of the arms was far faster than the speed of their retreat. In a situation where it was impossible to dodge, the two magic apprentices could only resist head-on and try to completely break the arms. It was effective but not effective. Whether it was the light magic or the shadow magic ball, whether it was piercing or exploding, they could only shatter part of the yellow sand. The scattered yellow sand immediately merged into the arms and reconfigured, not affecting the movement of the whole arms at all. But the two apprentices were firmly caught. The yellow sand invaded and instantly disintegrated the magic shields on the surface of the two apprentices. Eliminated, the seemingly difficult 1 versus 3 battle ended just like that. At the same time, the barrier collapsed and scattered into yellow sand. This series of yellow sand operations drained all the energy of the seed in Han Dong's head. A strong sense of dizziness swept over his body, his consciousness dissipated, and he suddenly fell to the ground. Of course, this was also because Han Dong deliberately consumed all the energy. If he could really be unscathed and kill the 3 top magic apprentices of this year's library in seconds, not only would the teachers of the library lose face, but Han Dong would also inevitably be targeted by the higher-ups. The information was very likely to be directly sent to the Congress. However, the wording was changed to "a student exhausted all his energy, defeated 3 magic apprentices in an adverse situation, and completely lost his consciousness." This was much better. Of course, Han Dong had just connected the Hand of Undying Sacrifice yesterday, and the yellow sand system had just been activated. The series of yellow sand spells used just now consumed energy at a terrifying rate. To be honest, Han Dong, who was wrapped in the yellow sand barrier, was also shocked by such a terrifying rate of energy consumption. Before falling to the ground and closing his eyes, Han Dong even made a gesture to Demps, indicating that he should help deal with the aftermath. When the hazy Han Dong gradually woke up, he vaguely felt that he was in a primitive and fresh magic domain. The seed's energy was recovering at a speed of 300%, and the dizziness in his brain was greatly reduced. When he gradually opened his eyes, Han Dong discovered that he was soaking in a relatively thick light blue hot spring. Of course, his outer clothes had been completely removed. This way, the solution could directly come into contact with his body and increase the recovery effect. "You're awake." There was another person in the magic hot spring. It was Demps, the person Han Dong had sent the signal to before he fainted. "This is the advanced resting area of the demonic pivot. The deputy director let us in." Seeing that Han Dong was awake, Demps slowly approached from the other side of the hot spring. He slightly adjusted the monolithic bronze mirror on his face and stared at Han Dong's thin and weak body. "Vice Captain, when did you learn sand magic?" "Not long ago, I learned it by chance." Demps naturally understood the meaning behind the so-called coincidental opportunity, and he would not delve into how Han Dong had learned it. Amazing. Sand is an extremely rare magic attribute. It's not something you can learn just because you want to. You must have a certain characteristic to be able to learn it. By the way, did I pass the assessment this time? Of course. If he still doesn't let you pass, it's obviously against you. Although the deputy director is narrow-minded and biased towards the students of his own academy. But since you have promised that you will admit that you have received the education of the library, when you gain achievements in the future, the deputy director will not deliberately make things difficult for you. After this, you should be able to get a borrowing card that allows you to rent books freely in the library. Of course, the free books are limited to the basic books. Slightly advanced books require copper coins and the permission of the instructor. If you are short of money, I can lend you more. Thank you. If I need it, I'll look for you again. Turn your back to me. What? Han Dong suddenly had a strange feeling. After all, it just involved a monetary transaction. The magic circuit in your body is a bit strange. It's like it doesn't completely belong to you. If the magic circuit is not smooth or not suitable for your body, it will cause short circuit, energy loss, and other situations when releasing magic. Han Dong had seen this in the basic books. The magic circuit in Han Dong's body had already been formed when he learned crow magic. However, last night, the border of the sand arm added another circuit to the original foundation. It seemed to be a magic circuit system that belonged to Imhotep. In essence, this magic circuit was more like an invisible engraving that was used to guide the energy output from the brain seed and regulate the flow and conversion rate and method of the energy in the body. After the arm was connected last night, it was already late. Han Dong had no time to carefully check the circuit. He just made sure that the energy flow was not affected and quickly went to sleep. Han Dong had just turned his back to Demps. A finger directly touched his spine, and a feeling of electric current spread throughout his body. It was really comfortable. Your circuit. What's going on? What? The structure of the magic circuit is generally regular and single-layered. The circuit in your body is divided into 2 layers, and the inner layer's circuit structure is curved and twisted. It's very strange. Are there any drawbacks? There are no drawbacks. The function of the circuit is a guide. It's fine as long as it can carry magic energy normally. Your double-layered circuit is very rare. Let me help you adjust it. It should be able to optimize it by 30% to 40%. Thank you. There was no such thing as walls having ears in the high-level magic hot spring area. Demps directly took out a 6th finger. A finger that was both virtual and real, similar to Han Dong's tentacles, ignored the obstruction and directly passed through the skin on his back. Ouch! This time, it was not so comfortable. Intense pain and the feeling of needles were constantly coming. It was like directly picking up tendons without anesthesia. There are many closed circuits that need to be rewired. Endure it. Okay. It seemed to be a small-scale circuit debugging, but in fact, it was a big project. Only some senior professors in the library could do it. Demps, on the other hand, used his ability outside the city to achieve this adjustment process. This trick did not work on ordinary apprentices. Once touched by the 6th finger, the skin would be contaminated. Han Dong was different. As traders, the two naturally did not have to worry about contamination. In some aspects, they could achieve exquisite cooperation that ordinary people could not achieve. Demps also touched Han Dong's left arm during the massage. For a moment, Demps seemed to have traveled to ancient Egypt and was inside the pyramid, witnessing the scene of the high priest being mummified alive. I see. Chapter 372. The moment Kananin, the Malay mage, was eliminated, the 2 magic apprentices, who were casting long-range spells, retreated almost at the same time. At this time, the yellow sand began to flow again. 2 large sand arms were built on the surface of the yellow sand barrier, and an eye of quicksand grew out of the palms, completely locking onto the 2 apprentices. The speed of the arms was far faster than the speed of their retreat. In a situation where it was impossible to dodge, the 2 magic apprentices could only resist head-on and try to completely break the arms. It was effective but not effective. Whether it was the light magic or the shadow magic ball, whether it was piercing or exploding, they could only shatter part of the yellow sand. The scattered yellow sand immediately merged into the arms and reconfigured, not affecting the movement of the whole arms at all. The two apprentices were firmly caught. The yellow sand invaded and instantly disintegrated the magic shields on the surface of the two apprentices. Eliminated, the seemingly difficult 1 versus 3 battle ended just like that. At the same time, the barrier collapsed and scattered into yellow sand. This series of yellow sand operations drained all the energy of the seed in Han Dong's head. A strong sense of dizziness swept over his body, his consciousness dissipated, and he suddenly fell to the ground. Of course, this was also because Han Dong deliberately consumed all the energy. If he could really be unscathed and kill the 3 top magic apprentices of this year's library in seconds, not only would the teachers of the library lose face, but Han Dong would also inevitably be targeted by the higher-ups. The information was very likely to be directly sent to the Congress. However, the wording was changed to: a student exhausted all his energy, defeated 3 magic apprentices in an adverse situation, and completely lost his consciousness. This was much better. Of course, Han Dong had just connected the Hand of Undying Sacrifice yesterday, and the yellow sand system had just been activated. The series of yellow sand spells used just now consumed energy at a terrifying rate. To be honest, Han Dong, who was wrapped in the yellow sand barrier, was also shocked by such a terrifying rate of energy consumption. Before falling to the ground and closing his eyes, Han Dong even made a gesture to Demps, indicating that he should help deal with the aftermath. When the hazy Han Dong gradually woke up, he vaguely felt that he was in a primitive and fresh magic domain. The seed's energy was recovering at a speed of 300%, and the dizziness in his brain was greatly reduced. When he gradually opened his eyes, Han Dong discovered that he was soaking in a relatively thick light blue hot spring. Of course, his outer clothes had been completely removed. This way, the solution could directly come into contact with his body and increase the recovery effect. "You're awake." There was another person in the magic hot spring. It was Demps, the person Han Dong had sent the signal to before he fainted. "This is the advanced resting area of the demonic pivot. The deputy director let us in." Seeing that Han Dong was awake, Demps slowly approached from the other side of the hot spring. He slightly adjusted the monolithic bronze mirror on his face and stared at Han Dong's thin and weak body. "Vice Captain, when did you learn sand magic?" "Not long ago, I learned it by chance." Demps naturally understood the meaning behind the so-called coincidental opportunity, and he would not delve into how Han Dong had learned it. Amazing. Sand is an extremely rare magic attribute. It's not something you can learn just because you want to. You must have a certain characteristic to be able to learn it. By the way, did I pass the assessment this time? Of course. If he still doesn't let you pass, it's obviously against you. Although the deputy director is narrow-minded and biased towards the students of his own academy. But since you have promised that you will admit that you have received the education of the library, when you gain achievements in the future, the deputy director will not deliberately make things difficult for you. After this, you should be able to get a borrowing card that allows you to rent books freely in the library. Of course, the free books are limited to the basic books. Slightly advanced books require copper coins and the permission of the instructor. If you are short of money, I can lend you more. Thank you. If I need it, I'll look for you again. Turn your back to me. What? Han Dong suddenly had a strange feeling. After all, it just involved a monetary transaction. The magic circuit in your body is a bit strange. It's like it doesn't completely belong to you. If the magic circuit is not smooth or not suitable for your body, it will cause short circuit, energy loss, and other situations when releasing magic. Han Dong had seen this in the basic books. The magic circuit in Han Dong's body had already been formed when he learned crow magic. However, last night, the border of the sand arm added another circuit to the original foundation. It seemed to be a magic circuit system that belonged to Imhotep. In essence, this magic circuit was more like an invisible engraving that was used to guide the energy output from the brain seed and regulate the flow and conversion rate and method of the energy in the body. After the arm was connected last night, it was already late. Han Dong had no time to carefully check the circuit. He just made sure that the energy flow was not affected and quickly went to sleep. Han Dong had just turned his back to Demps. A finger directly touched his spine, and a feeling of electric current spread throughout his body. It was really comfortable. Your circuit. What's going on? What? The structure of the magic circuit is generally regular and single-layered. The circuit in your body is divided into 2 layers, and the inner layer's circuit structure is curved and twisted. It's very strange. Are there any drawbacks? There are no drawbacks. The function of the circuit is a guide. It's fine as long as it can carry magic energy normally. Your double-layered circuit is very rare. Let me help you adjust it. It should be able to optimize it by 30% to 40%. Thank you. There was no such thing as walls having ears in the high-level magic hot spring area. Demps directly took out a 6th finger. A finger that was both virtual and real, similar to Han Dong's tentacles, ignored the obstruction and directly passed through the skin on his back. Ouch! This time, it was not so comfortable. Intense pain and the feeling of needles were constantly coming. It was like directly picking up tendons without anesthesia. There are many closed circuits that need to be rewired. Endure it. Okay. It seemed to be a small-scale circuit debugging, but in fact, it was a big project. Only some senior professors in the library could do it. Demps, on the other hand, used his ability outside the city to achieve this adjustment process. This trick did not work on ordinary apprentices. Once touched by the 6th finger, the skin would be contaminated. Han Dong was different. As traders, the two naturally did not have to worry about contamination. In some aspects, they could achieve exquisite cooperation that ordinary people could not achieve. Demps also touched Han Dong's left arm during the massage. For a moment, Demps seemed to have traveled to ancient Egypt and was inside the pyramid, witnessing the scene of the high priest being mummified alive. I see. Chapter 373. Demps snapped his fingers at the first moment. The high temperature covered all the food on the table. When the surface of the food was boiled, they could see that the inside of the food had completely rotted in a short period of time. There were already soft things like tentacles forming inside. A normal source of pollution could not do this. The ability to cause organic matter to mutate must have come from a life form outside the city. The thing that emitted this special pollution was a dark gray coin inside the stone box. The material was unknown. After everyone saw the uniqueness of the coin, Abel immediately closed the stone box. Otherwise, if the pollution continued to spread, the people from the Adventurers Guild would find them. Abel, where did this come from? Han Dong could feel a pollution that was even purer than that of the great Lord of Stuart from the surface of the coin. It was very likely that it came from a hybrid demon. I temporarily joined a special training group. It was completely different from the Knights' training. There was no fixed training location. We had to move every day. It was similar to a small-scale expedition. About 10 days ago, the group found a hybrid demon's nest in Stone's Hard Canyon. The leader of the Knights asked us to suppress it and attack the nest. However, speaking of this, Abel's expression began to change. What's wrong? Everyone at the table was very curious about this matter. After all, it was related to the strange stone box and coin that Abel took out. There were only a few low-level demons that were born less than a year ago in the cave. According to the investigation of the scouts, there seemed to be a strange aura that did not belong to the inside of the cave. At the same time, we also found an extremely deep secret tunnel at the bottom of the cave. The secret tunnel led to the Holy City and was connected to the abandoned sewers. According to the investigation, the entrance barrier of the sewers still exists. But the other party went through? Han Dong continued. That's right. The hybrid demons and their demons used some unknown method to pass through the barrier and have completely infiltrated the holy city. They could be hiding in the abandoned sewers, or they could be hiding in the commoners' district in disguise. The information has been sent back to the holy city. During this period of time, the knights have been on the move. The Adventurers Guild has also posted many missions about searching the civilian area. They still haven't found it? No, there hasn't been any substantial progress on this matter. When Abel said this, Han Dong already had a certain idea. Demps, who was sitting opposite him, looked at each other. The two of them seemed to have the same opinion. There should be a mole in the sacred city, right? First, they received visitors from outside the city in the abandoned sewers. Then, they provided them with normal civilian identities. After all, many people in the civilian district died every day due to diseases, suicides, and strange occurrences. By secretly disposing of the dead body without reporting it, you can free up an identity. Abel nodded. Indeed, I believe the knights have also noticed this. Therefore, we are currently investigating house by house, but we still haven't found anything. You didn't notice anything at all? Only an in-depth investigation can reveal the truth. Han Dong currently had very little information and could only make this much inference. Captain Abel, why don't you tell me what you have? This thing must be closely related to the guy hiding in the holy city, right? The stone box and the coin. It's a bit embarrassing to say. Because I was injured during the special training and my condition wasn't good, I didn't follow the team into the underground passage. Instead, I stayed in the grotto to guard it. Because I was very tired, I had to maintain the owl posture to improve my concentration. Because of this, I accidentally noticed a mechanism in the grotto that corresponded to a secret room. Before notifying the others, I secretly took the stone box that was placed on the stone platform in the secret room. During the special training period, there were many people who did the same thing as me in private, trying their best to gain some extra benefit. If this thing was submitted to the knights alone, it would definitely directly increase my overall score in this special training. But after thinking about it, maybe we can use it to digest it internally. So, I called everyone here to discuss this matter. Han Dong asked, in other words, no one knows about the stone box and the coin? Abel nodded. Yes. If we can use this special evidence to find the hybrid demon hiding in the holy city, we will definitely be rewarded. This is the large-scale bounty issued by the Adventurers Guild. Take a look first. Large-scale bounty. Secret stone incident location. On the surface of the holy city, all civilian areas. Details. A kind of evil stone group has used special methods to sneak into the holy city and lurk in the civilian area. Difficulty. Unknown. In addition to ordinary evil creatures, this incident also involves a hybrid demon. The highest difficulty is beyond the range of apprentice knight. In the case of suspected discovery of a hybrid demon, please immediately leave the scene and send the information to the knights as soon as possible. Scale. Large scale. This mission can be accepted by many teams. The reward will be based on the evil creatures killed by different teams and the clues provided by different teams. Time limit. None. Completion condition. Until the knights officially confirm and announce the death of the invading hybrid demon. Mission reward 1. Kill and bring back an independent evil stone. You will be rewarded with 50 copper coins. 2. Provide the correct information about the hybrid demon to the knight. You will be rewarded with 1,000 copper coins. Note 1. This incident has a high probability of being contaminated. Please wear the goggles when carrying out the mission. 2. After completing the mission, you must go to the nearest church or precepts for baptism and stress release. There was also a portrait at the bottom of the bounty. It seemed to be an evil creature, secret stone user, that had been discovered. The skin on its face was slightly peeling off, revealing the dark stone structure under its skin. As long as they could provide the correct information about the hybrid demon, everyone would be rewarded with 1,000 copper coins. This was a huge amount of wealth for the apprentice knight. Don't compare him to Demps. Han Dong pinched his nose and said, "Things are not as simple as they seem. If we want to go deeper into this incident, it will be very risky." "What do you mean? Captain Abel, didn't you just say that when we went deeper into the cave, we found a different scent that didn't belong to this group of secret stones? This incident might involve more than one hybrid demon, not to mention that there are people in the holy city who are helping them. The secret behind this might be very deadly. Why don't we have a little gathering this time? Later, I will give this to my grandfather and let the knights deal with it themselves? It's a bit wasteful. Since we brought it back, why don't we investigate it a little? Abel, all the people who went to the special training outside the city came back, right?" "Yes." "Okay, I will call 2 reliable friends over. Wait for a moment. When the time comes, we can split into 2 groups and investigate from different angles. Once we find any danger, we will stop immediately." Chapter 374. After Han Dong sent out the message, he immediately went to the Mystery Academy to meet Mr. Black and White. As a prophet, Mr. Black and White must have known about the invasion of evil in the abandoned sewers. He must also know where these evil creatures were hiding, but he didn't do anything about it. Han Dong needed to confirm one thing. On the top floor, in the stargazing room, Mr. Black and White was observing the movement of the stars with a telescope. "Sir, you knew in advance that the Book of the Dead, I copy flowed into the sewers. You must know about the secret stone incident this time, right? You didn't provide the information because it was within your control, right?" Mr. Black and White was wearing a white mask today. His aura was completely different, and he wasn't easy to talk to. If I have to intervene in everything, some of the really dangerous things might be overlooked. Stargazing doesn't mean that I can observe every detail. In most cases, what I see is only the movement of a line. Although some lines are dangerous, they will return to a preferred path after some distortion and completion. Also, as you said, as long as it's within our control, the knights will only intervene to a certain extent. I'll leave this precious training opportunity to you apprentice knights so that you can adapt to the harsh environment outside the city in advance. Thank you, Mr. Black and White. After receiving such a reply, Han Dong immediately left. Since Mr. Black and White was sure that the incident was within his control, Han Dong and the others could take over this matter. However, before Han Dong stepped into the elevator, Mr. Black and White's voice sounded, "This incident is a bit strange. You happen to have the key in your hands. Don't accidentally open the door to the abyss." "Thank you, sir." Han Dong wanted to investigate this incident mainly for 3 reasons. First, more than 1,000 copper coins was not a small amount. He was embarrassed to keep owing Demps money. Secondly, it was made of inorganic material, stone. Han Dong had never seen such evil filth before. He wanted to use this chance to understand the life forms outside Wuji City, not to mention that there was a hybrid demon mixed within. If he could come into direct contact with it, he would be able to truly understand and test the strength of the hybrid demons and make preparations to break the seed. Thirdly, he might be able to help his good friend. When I returned to the entrance of the Adventurers Guild, Han Dong's invitation had been answered. His good friend, whom he hadn't seen for almost a year, was now leaning on the side of the Adventurers Guild. Just by standing there, he attracted the attention of many female students. When he wore the hard vest, one could faintly imagine the perfect shark lines under his clothes through the muscle lines on his outer arms. Under the lustrous golden hair was a bright and handsome young man's face. Compared to a year ago, he seemed much more mature. Or perhaps it was because he had not shaved his beard clean, which gave him the wrong impression. Her blonde hair seemed to have grown long because she hadn't taken care of it for a while, and a rather tasteful ponytail was tied behind her head. This person was fundamentally different from Dempsey's handsome, bright, tough, and dependable. Standing next to this person, one could feel absolute safety. Brother Lon. Ignoring the girl's attempt to talk to him, this person immediately locked onto Han Dong, who was not far away, and greeted him as he walked forward. Cass. The two who hadn't seen each other for a year hugged each other passionately. To a certain extent, Cass was the first friend that Han Dong had made after coming to this world. The righteous aura that Cass emitted was extremely rare. Almost a year of special training has finally ended. Congratulations! Through physical contact, Han Dong could feel that Cass, who had reached the seed-breaking stage, had undergone a qualitative change compared to before. I was just about to wait a few days and find you to meet up. Why are you looking for me in such a hurry? Cass, do you have a clear goal to break the seed? Yes. After all, Cass was also a noble, so he had already considered the goal of breaking the seed. Cass continued, after this training, I plan to take the Overlord route. With the help of my father's Authors Association, I've currently locked onto the Sanaa Mountains about 230 kilometers away from the Holy City. There are a group of Inhumans who specialize in physical training. They have a defense that far surpasses life forms of the same level and a unique combat ability. Overlord? A type of Crusader talent tree? Yes, a type of Crusader with a thick skin and a lot of HP. It allows me to stand in front of the team and block a lot of damage. Of course, the Overlord is different from the purely defensive Crusader. Its offensive ability is also very good. I think you may not need to go to the Sanaa Mountains. There is a suitable target for you in the Holy City. What do you mean? You'll know in a while. Wait for another person. In addition to inviting you, I've also invited another person. About 10 minutes later, a pure white horse galloped over, and the trainee knights walking on the street all made way. While staring at the blonde beauty on the horse, Cass hugged Han Dong's shoulder and whispered, Kid, don't tell me you've already settled Knight Celeste? Don't talk nonsense. If she hears you, she'll kill you. Because Han Dong sent a message saying that there was something related to the safety of the Holy City that needed help. Wino Celeste directly put on her silver light armor and rushed over. Cass, you're done with your special training? Yes. My sister has been talking about your name recently. Remember to visit her when you have time. I know, I already met with Sophia yesterday. When you become official knights, hurry up and have the wedding. Understand? Okay. To be honest, Cass was only thinking about his own path as a knight. He did not think much about emotional matters at all. After saying this, Wino stopped the horse in the stable and came to Han Dong's side. Tell me, what's the matter? Up there, I have a group of friends waiting for us up there. The matter involves the hybrid demons in the city. Sister Wino, you should know about this. Secret stone? However, my friend has a unique clue. Follow me. Han Dong led the two of them and pushed open the door of the VIP room. Mia immediately showed a fierce look and stared at Knight Wino as if she was her rival in love. Knight? When they saw Wino, Abel and the others immediately stood up and bowed their heads respectfully. After all, the status of an official knight was far above that of a group of trainee knights. Moreover, Wino seemed to be quite famous. Everyone be at ease. Sister Wino is considered my friend. She will personally lead this operation. I haven't agreed yet. Wino looked arrogant. She crossed her legs and sat down close to Han Dong. Chapter 375. Actually, Abel, who was present, also had connections to find an official knight leader. However, there was a problem. They were carrying out the mission assigned to the apprentice knights by the school's Adventurers Guild. Being led by a knight would be prohibited, similar to being a substitute trainer. Moreover, once it involved hybrid demons, most of the knights would choose to inform the knight group they belonged to. They would never deal with it alone. Abel was the beloved grandson of Commander Kai Meng. No knight in the Behemoth Knight Regiment dared to take this risk. If something happened to Abel, they might not be able to survive even if they had several lives. Therefore, it was very important for Han Dong to find a trustworthy knight. Senior Cass, right? Just as Han Dong led his two friends into the private room, Abel, who had just participated in the special training, immediately recognized this senior, who was also in the special training team. Cass's extraordinary performance in the team was still fresh in his memory. Although in terms of talent, Cass might not be as good as this group of junior geniuses. But Cass's strength was not weak at all. Abel Ryan? Cass naturally recognized this transfer student. In his impression, Abel joined the special training temporarily in a tired state. At that time, it was already the middle of the special training. The training intensity had increased comprehensively and there were no novice tutorials. However, Abel could immediately adapt to all kinds of high-intensity special training and persevere until the end of the special training to obtain a pass certificate. This was really not easy. I remember that Senior Cass directly got an excellent evaluation in the special training, right? I didn't expect you to know Nicholas. Well, my body seems to be more adapted to life outside the city. You also did very well. If I was like you and joined halfway in a tired state, I wouldn't have been able to persevere. Commander Kai Meng has high expectations for you. In addition, Nicholas and I can be considered old acquaintances, haha. With that, Cass habitually put his arm on one of Han Dong's shoulders, showing that the two had a very good relationship. Just like that, through Han Dong, the connection hub, everyone quickly became familiar with each other. In the meantime, Mia, who was sitting at the same table, looked at Knight Wino as if she was her love rival. She then turned to look at Cass. In her eyes, this robust and handsome golden-haired young man was the main character, and everyone else had to step aside. Han Dong introduced the people at the same table one by one. Once again, Abel took out the stone box to store the coins. Using the stone box as an item, Han Dong began to explain in detail about the secret stone incident and his current deductions. Finally, he turned his attention to Knight Wino, who had the ability to fight the hybrid demons head-on. Sister Wino. That's the general situation. If you can get rid of the hybrid demons in private, you should be able to get a reward from the Knight Order, and it will help you get the position of Deputy Corporal. It's too dangerous, but it's worth a try. Not bad. There were also differences in the Knight Order. Wino Celeste, who was born in the royal family, had this kind of arrogance since she was young. Now, she was qualified to take the position of Deputy Corporal, but she needed an opportunity. In this strange and unpredictable invasion, if she could get rid of the hybrid demons hiding in the dark by herself, she would be promoted to Deputy Corporal. But, you little guys might be in danger. You have to prove your strength to me. This incident is just as Nicholas inferred, there might be more than one hybrid demon hidden in the dark, and there might be more dangerous existences. If something happens to you, I can't bear the responsibility. Han Dong suddenly thought of a good idea. Time is tight, Sister Wino, you are an all-round knight. How about we use the simplest method to prove our strength? What? Arm wrestling. Wino had a chain in one hand and a light shield in the other, and she could charge at any time. Her strength was not bad. Also, after breaking the seed, the human body would undergo a real qualitative change, and basic attributes such as strength would be greatly improved. Okay. Who's first? She took off her gauntlet and released her aura. She put her slender, white, and slightly muscular arm on the table. Visible holy light covered the surface of her arm, and she was ready to kill the novice knights present. Wenli, you go. Ah. Wenli, who was still eating meat and felt that she was not full, was a little confused when she heard Han Dong call her. However, when Han Dong assigned Wenli to arm wrestle, the people who knew the ropes smiled knowingly. Wenli was a little shy, and she slowly walked to Wino. When she stretched out her bare arm was twice as thick as Wino's. At the same time, a power halo spread out. When their palms were close, Wino had the illusion that she needed to move a mountain. Wait, who is this girl? Wino had already noticed that something was wrong, especially when she saw Han Dong's evil smile, and she felt that she had been tricked. Wenli Austin, she is the adopted daughter of the great blacksmith, Hedriger, Grandmaster Blacksmith? Wino basically understood that Han Dong's friends were a group of monsters, but she could not lose in arm wrestling. 20 minutes passed. In the private room, the thick marble table was broken. People who did not know would think that something big had happened here. Ahem. Not bad. You guys are barely qualified to be in a stalemate with me for such a long time. I'll go to the washroom first, and we'll meet downstairs later. I'll tell you the detailed grouping and investigation on the way. In the end, Wino won. But in the washroom, Wino covered her exhausted right arm, and even her wrist was slightly sprained. She could not believe that a little novice knight could have such strength. If I didn't secretly use Blessing of Strength and Blessing of Perseverance, I'm afraid I would have lost. She can reach this level with pure brute force. Where did the great blacksmith find such a monster apprentice? By the way, I remember there was a rumor in the knight group. About a few decades ago, a power-type deputy captain was sentenced to death by the council as a traitor. It was said that the deputy captain's power was at the top of the holy city, and no one could compare to him in terms of pure strength. Is there a relationship between the two? Wino stopped thinking about it. She quickly took some recovery potions to adjust her condition, and pretended that nothing had happened to her as she joined the team. They rented a medium-sized carriage, and went to the civilian area. Han Dong briefly explained the initial plan, under the premise of knowing that the evil has invaded. The night group has started to search. We can't find the evil at all. I suggest that we split up in the early stage. Go to different areas to investigate. If there is any progress, we can exchange information through the clockwork device. If we can determine the gathering place of the evil, or find out how they are hiding, we will act together. Chapter 376. Holy City, Nunthanar. The area closest to the city wall with the lowest level was the civilian area, the most densely populated area. With the Moslabi River as the dividing line, the civilian area was completely separated from the core area of the Holy City. It was rumored that there was a second city wall at the bottom of the Moslabi River. Once the outermost city wall was breached, the second city wall at the bottom of the river would immediately rise. Returning to the civilian area. For Han Dong, he didn't feel much. After all, he didn't stay here for long. This was just the area where the owner of this body lived. The streets were filled with dirty water. The architectural style and arrangement without any regulations. The pedestrians who didn't have much expectation for life walked on the street. In order to not attract attention, Han Dong wore plain casual clothes. With his short and yellow body, he quickly blended in with the civilians. No one doubted Han Dong's identity. The news reached the Holy City about a week ago. Although this group of evildoers didn't do any evil, but the Knights and the Adventurers Guild have been mobilized in batches to conduct a comprehensive search in the civilian area. They even checked house by house, but they didn't find anything. This is too unreasonable. There must be some blind spot that hasn't been discovered. Han Dong wasn't like a headless fly, searching aimlessly. At the dining table, the moment Cass opened the stone box, Han Dong secretly noted down the pollution that could cause organisms to mutate. Through the uniqueness of the little magic eye, he could conduct a directional search for this unique pollution. Just as Han Dong walked past 2 Street, a young man in the same plain clothes was standing at the exit of another street, meeting up with Han Dong. Demps Martin. Although on the surface it was said that they were going to split up. However, Han Dong had predicted that the secrecy of this infiltration would be extremely high. Therefore, he had privately invited Dempus to help. After all, both of them had connections outside the city. They might find something if they used other means to investigate. To be honest, Demps was not the least bit interested in this kind of pure copper reward. The highest reward was 1,000 copper coins, which Demps could easily earn with a flick of his finger. During the meal, Demps didn't say a single word. However, since his companion needed help, Demps was willing to help. "Come here for a moment." Demps, who was standing at the entrance of the alley, waved his hand slightly, indicating for Han Dong to come over and talk. He seemed to have discovered something. The matter this time is very troublesome, and the overall benefits are not high. I need to ask you first, why are you investigating this matter? You can pay me back the money you owe me at any time. There's no need to take this risk. I'm more interested in the hybrid demon behind this. Also, I want to help that friend complete his seed. Cas Maldini? That's right, all right. Demps nodded and pointed to the depths of the alley. Follow me. I have a lot of spies in the civilian area. They more or less know about the things that are going on in the dark. In the dark? You have Mr. Black and White as your backer. I don't. Even if I can please Ahara. If my identity is exposed, she definitely won't plead for me or take the initiative to take responsibility for anything. I still have to have some necessary escape route. Just like you, Nicholas, other than Mr. Black and White, you've also started to leave some escape routes outside the city. Knock, knock, knock. Dempus knocked on a wooden door in the depths of the alleyway. Squeak, squeak, squeak. A large number of rats immediately scurried out of the opening at the bottom of the old wooden door. These rats seemed to have run out because they were disturbed, but in fact, it was a detection method used to determine the identity of the visitor outside the door. The wooden door opened. A hooded tramp stuck his head out, and a foul smell came from his body. Lord Six Fingers, why are you here personally? Please come in. This is my friend. Good. Come in quickly. Recently, due to some troublesome matters, the Knights have been frequently searching the civilian area. As Han Dong and Demps entered, this person released more rats, and they covered the entire alley. Once someone broke in, they would know immediately. When they stepped into the room, Demps immediately produced a ball of flame in his palm to illuminate the room. Inside was a dilapidated wooden house that seemed to have been uninhabited for several years. The ground and wooden beams were crawling with rats, and various food scraps were scattered all over the floor. It did not look like the so-called stronghold Demps mentioned at all. This is Rat Mangurd, my receptionist. I once picked him up from the dirtiest rat den in the civilian area. He's a very capable person in terms of perception. Hello. When Gerd took off his hood, a protruding face with a long and hard beard was revealed. He reached out a claw covered in black fur and shook Han Dong's hand. Han Dong did not mind. Just as the two of them shook hands, Han Dong could faintly sense an aura from outside the city from this person's body, but it was very weak. Han Dong had to be very close to him to sense it. Relatively speaking, this rat man also felt a high-level pressure from Han Dong, and his eyes were immediately filled with respect. This is a wild monster? No, it should be a human, right? Han Dong could not figure out Gerd's position for a moment. However, when he thought about it carefully and combined with Demps's previous word. Demps, could it be that you gave him the ability? Demps smiled knowingly. Deputy Captain is indeed powerful. Gerd, bring us down. Yes. They moved the wooden bed. Under Dreeg's control, a large number of rats pushed away the wooden planks on the ground, revealing a secret passage that led deep underground. The so-called stronghold was revealed. It was similar to an underground tavern. With a few candles for illumination, there were all kinds of people gathered inside. There were at least dozens of people. They were similar to rat mandrig, and they all had some characteristics that were different from humans. When Gerd led the two of them to the huge underground tavern, all the civilians gathered here placed their right palms on their chests, lowered their heads, and greeted in unison. Lord Six Fingers. Han Dong scanned this group of people through the enhanced vision of the little magic eye. He could not find any trace of impurity in their eyes at all. They were 100% loyal to Demp. Such a scene made Han Dong associate it with some underground churches. If this group of civilians were replaced with believers, Demps would be the only god they worship. Obviously, Demps had spent a lot of energy here. How did you do it? Demps replied with a smile, It's very simple. I gave them something that the holy city could not give. Let me ask them. They live in the darkest area of the civilian area and should know some information. Chapter 377. Demps passed down the news. He asked the rat personality Reed to ask everyone about the secret stone incident. After the information was collected, he would bring it to him. This way, he could review all the information together and save a lot of time. While waiting, the waitress, Miss UC, arranged a clean VIP room for the two of them. Miss UC, who was in charge of the tavern, was much cleaner than the underground civilians here. She had a short and thin body, two bright big eyes, neat and generous long brown hair, and a checkered apron in front of her. Only the several scars on her face were a bit strange. After asking, he learned that these were her unique gills that allowed her to breathe freely underwater. UC was picked up from the waste ditch. It seems that she was abandoned by her family. After all, with her body, let alone surviving in the destiny space, she can't even do ordinary labor. However, Miss UC has taken good care of the tavern. Thank you, Master Six Fingers. When she heard the praise from Demps, the gills on her face kept opening and closing. She was very excited. Okay, you can go out. Yes. The door of the private room was closed. Demps leaned on the soft leather chair to rest for a while. Han Dong asked, This underground tavern cost you a lot of effort, right? By the way, if you give them your ability, there is a possibility of being discovered, right? Of course, I spent a lot of effort. After all, this is one of my important escape routes. At the same time, it can help me collect some important information in the civilian area. As for the ability problem, naturally, it may be leaked. But they have the ability to do things for me, and they will be more loyal to me. Dempus very calmly said all of this, giving off the feeling of a strategist. At the same time, for him to be able to tell Han Dong such an important method, to a certain extent, it showed that he had absolute trust in his friend. After a while, Ratman Dreger knocked on the door and entered the room. He held the sorted information in his hand, but his facial expression was obviously not good. Master Six Fingers, the matter you want to investigate is very troublesome. Not long ago, because of this matter, Wheatley, Rockefeller, and Zhong Si died. I hope you won't investigate this matter for the time being, otherwise, the entire civilian area will become restless. All the guys who have been lurking in the dark will be implicated, including us. After saying that, 3 corpses were carried in. They were the 3 weirdos from the underground tavern that Dreeg had mentioned. Driven by curiosity, Han Dong immediately went forward to examine the corpse. The eyeballs, nasal cavity, and tongue are highly fossilized. Part of his skin was petrified. If it was the evil filth or the mantis demons who did it, it should be the petrification phenomenon caused by the pollution entering their bodies. However, the strange thing was that there were no traces of the pollution left on their bodies. Can I take a look inside their bodies? Yes. After obtaining permission, Han Dong performed an open-body examination on one of the strong men whose abdomen was not too badly petrified. The situation inside stunned Han Dong, and even Demps felt uncomfortable. Han Dong slowly took out the seemingly normal liver and held it in his hand. However, its weight was 10 times that of a normal liver. He gently cut open the liver's epidermis with his fingernails. Crackle, countless spherical pebbles rolled out of the liver and fell to the ground. Other than a small piece of epidermis wrapped around the entire liver, the inside of the liver was filled with such stones. Not only that, but the other internal organs were also full of stones. At the same time, the blood vessels were also filled with such stones. It was hard to imagine what kind of pain this person had suffered when he was alive. The so-called secret stone incident was more complicated than Han Dong had imagined. Demps, how can you let the pollution invade and cause the relevant mutation, causing the death of the individual without leaving any traces of the pollution? I don't know. Maybe it's the unique ability of the mantis demons. After all, the mantis demons are the real life forms that threaten humans outside the city. They are completely independent and unique. All kinds of strange characteristics can appear on them. The autopsy was completed. Han Dong sat back in his seat. After Miss Yusi cleaned up the pebbles on the ground, they continued the conversation. Drieg, tell me the information and how the 3 of them died first. I'll think about how to deal with this matter. Yes, because of Han Dong's autopsy just now, this rat man was also quite frightened. He seemed to have thought of something terrifying, and his voice trembled slightly. To be honest, about a week ago, an uninvited guest came to our place. Demps frowned. Someone came here? Why didn't I know? This person said that once we tell anyone about him, we will all die, and the people who know the information will also die. Naturally, we were against it at first, until Wheatley and the other 2 were killed in an instant. We could only give up fighting back. Moreover, the other party's request wasn't particularly excessive, and we didn't have to take a big risk. We just had to do as he said, and this matter would be over. So, I acted on my own initiative and didn't report this matter to you. Hearing this, Demps showed a rare expression of displeasure. After all, this was his territory. They were all subordinates that he had developed, but they were invaded and used by others. Drieg continued, if you ask me, the next information will cross the other party's bottom line. Our lives and yours, Lord Six Fingers, may be in danger. Unexpectedly, Demps didn't hesitate at all. He placed his hands in front of him. Speak. Yes, Drieg first handed over a portrait. This is the uninvited guest that Nadiavid drew immediately after the incident. The strange thing is we don't remember the other party's appearance, so the face couldn't be drawn. Han Dong took this completely realistic painting. The so-called guest's body was completely covered in a gray robe, and no features could be seen. A large number of broken stones were scattered on the ground. The face couldn't be drawn, and one could only see that it was a visitor with a normal human figure. This is... Han Dong observed a mark printed on the gray robe, which was exactly the same as the mark on the surface of the coin sealed in the stone box. What did this person ask you to do? It was a very simple task. He asked us to provide cement. Every other day, someone would inform us of the location, and then we only needed to transport a few boxes of cement. As for what they wanted to do, it was none of our business. Drieg continued, later, according to my inquiries, several other organizations operating in the dark also received the same task of transporting cement. The range of cement delivery seemed to be all over the civilian area. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.